Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto runs away from Mizuki. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Naruto ran through the treetops, each bound making his breathing more and more labored. Strapped to his back was a large scroll full of powerful jutsus. The boy's movement through the trees could be chaotic at best. The poor boy had just found out why he was hated for his whole life. His sensei Mizuki had convinced him that if he could steal the fourth forbidden scroll and learn a jutsu from it, he would pass as a genin. The boy had achieved the task and was proud when his sensei Ruka had finally showed up. But soon his happiness at achieving the task was dashed as Mizuki upon his arrival told Naruto of the kyuubi that was sealed within him. Then as Mizuki threw a fuma shrunken at the boy, decided it was time for the boy to die. Naruto froze in fear and closed his eyes, waiting for the end to come. However, instead of feeling pain, he heard the whizzing of the shrunken halted as it hit flesh and a dull thud of a body falling next to him. As the blonde opened his eyes, he was met with the sight of Iruka's lifeless body laying next to him with the shrunken embedded in his neck. Tears fell from Naruto's eyes as he looked at the only person aside from the Hokage that had looked at him without hate. Naruto then looked up at the teacher that had betrayed him. Mizuki looked at him like a predator that had found hapless prey and was going in for the kill would. Quickly, out of instinct, Naruto ran off into the forest, away from the village and away from the treacherous teacher. "Come on, demon, just hand over the scroll and I'll make sure your life ends quickly," yelled Mizuki. Naruto kept running from the man, but it was obvious that his stamina was wearing thin. The training in the cage bushin had tired him out and he was in no condition to keep running for long. The blonde found the walls that separated the village from the rest of the country and climbed up them. As his made it to the other side, the boy's luck had ran out as Mizuki's second fuma shrunken embedded itself into Naruto's calf. Naruto cried out in pain as he fell from the tree canopy and slammed into the ground. As Naruto looked up at Mizuki, he knew that it was all over. There would be no Iruka to take the final blow, there would be no Leaf Shinobi to save the day, he would die here as the demon child. He then laid his head down on the ground and awaited his fate. When he laid his head on the ground, he felt water flowing under him. He looked at the ground and realized that water was trickling from the ground as if it was a giant water fountain. The water soon flooded the area and started to swirl around. Two jets of water shot out of the pool, piercing Mizuki in the chest, killing him where he stood. As Mizuki's body hit the ground, the swirling pool picked up speed, becoming a full-blown whirlpool. Naruto was soon caught in the vortex and was being dragged to the center. As the blonde hit the center, he was sucked down into the center where he submerged and disappeared. After the vortex completed its goal of engulfing the blonde, it receded, leavening only slight damp soil and an impaled Mizuki as any evidence to the scene's occurrence. Naruto's vision was completely overcome by rushing water as he held his breath for dear life. The act seemed to be in vain as his lungs started to burn, begging for oxygen. Then, out of complete despair, he submitted himself and gasped for air. To his surprise, though, instead of water filling his lungs, he breathed in air as if he wasn't even in a swirling vortex of water. Relieved that he was still alive but very confused about how he was breathing in the water, he contemplated what was going on. Obviously this whirlpool was the result of a ninjutsu, but he had never heard of anything like what he was experiencing. Before he could ponder the events any further, the torrent of water picked up speed and put the blonde under large G-forces. Soon the sight of water rushing around him turned to black as he passed out, destined to end up where the water was taking him. After his spell of unconsciousness ended, his eyes fluttered opened hazily. No longer in the water, he looked up at the sky. It, however, was not a normal sky. As his eyes refocused, he saw the sky was swirling. The sky looked as if it was a whirlpool, very much like the one that had consumed him, but as he got up he noticed he was on dry ground. That dry ground, in fact, was a street of a village very similar to Kohona. The only difference was that instead of the hustle and bustle that was seen in Kohona, the village was a ghost town. "Hello, is anybody around?" yelled Naruto. Nothing but silence was his answer. The silence was one of stagnation as the boy waited for a response. It was clear to him that the village was long since abandoned. No remains of anyone could be seen. It was as if everyone had just up and disappeared, leaving nothing but a shell of a town. As Naruto looked around the village, the geography was amazing. The village was surrounded in a circle of large sheer cliffs that reached 500 feet in the sky. But that was not the most awe-inspiring sight. What Naruto marveled at was something that dwarfed the Hokage monument back in Konoha. 3 figures were carved into the side of the sheer walls, each extending the right arms out and the palms extended forward. And from those palms the swirling rapids would begin before they made their journey to the middle of the sky. One of the monolithic figures caught Naruto's eyes especially. The figure depicted was a woman, judging by the figure, face and long hair, and even though it was carved in stone, Naruto could tell there was much beauty in the mysterious woman. He then saw the symbol on the figure's shoulders. It was identical to the symbol on his shoulder, a white swirl with beaded cords hanging of the sides. He instinctively caressed the symbol on his shoulder. He now knew he had a connection with this place and needed answers. So tightening the forbidden scroll to his back, he walked the deserted streets to find out what that connection was. Naruto wandered the streets looking for anything that would give him some answers. He found out that the village's layout was very organized. At the edge of the village a flowing river separated the cliffs from the center of the circular valley floor. The outer part near the river was all full of green space like farming areas, parks, forest with all sorts of wildlife, and areas that were obviously meant for ninja training. Seeing that he would not get answers from the forest, he decided that maybe the monuments would give answers. As he made his way to one of the statues, he saw that the figure was not in fact carved into the cliffside, but was its own separate structure that was supported by a platform over the river. As Naruto looked under one of the arches that supported the platform that allowed water to flow underneath the statue, he saw that some of the water was being sucked up into a seal that was placed in the middle of the platform. Seeing that he was getting more questions than answers at the edge of the village, he decided that center of the town would be best place to look next. As he headed towards the center of the town, trees and training grounds were replaced by housing complexes and residential districts. As he drew deeper, what appeared to be markets and stores were seen, obviously the commercial area. Then finally he made it to the center area of the village. This area had all buildings that served administration purposes for the village. A courthouse, a hospital, a school for civilians, a ninja academy, and a library were just a few buildings. But then Naruto saw the building that would be his best bet to find out where he was. A tower similar to the Hokage Tower back in Konoha was the building that stood at the epicenter of the village. The tower was teal in color, an interesting color to say the least, and the symbol for Uza was the only form of identification the building had. Naruto made his way into the building. He wandered the corridors of the tower, finding vaults, file rooms, interrogation faculties, research labs, everything a ninja village would need to keep itself secure, organized, and efficient. Then as he climbed higher into the tower, where he came to a large lobby. The lobby was quite large, with waterfalls coming off each corner of the room leading into whirlpool fountain pools at the floor. The room had many comfy chairs for clients to sit and wait for their meetings. Naruto then made his way to the other side of the lobby, where a round circular desk for a receptionist stood, and behind it 2 vaulted doors that nearly reached the ceiling stood with the words Uzakage engraved onto them. He opened the mammoth doors, surprised by how easy the doors could be pushed. The room he entered was definitely meant for a leader of a village, even if Naruto had not seen Uzakage engraved on the doors. Large windows overlooked the village on the far side of the room. A large desk and chair that were fit for a workspace of someone of high importance set in the middle. He looked at the room to see if he could find out anything about his location. As he scoped the room, he noticed 3 large pictures hanging on one of the walls. Each one matched one of the statues on the edge of the village. He then saw in full color the women that had caught his eyes in stone. Bright teal eyes and fiery red hair and a confident, foxy grin that screamed confidence, strength and mischievousness were present on the woman's face. Naruto saw a gold plaque at the bottom of the portrait and looked in closer, dying to know the name of this woman. As he read the name, his eyes went wide and tears came to his eyes, for on the plaque was a name, and only a name. The name of Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto tore through the office trying to find any proof to what the portrait said, finding nothing but old mission reports. As he started open the desk, he found a map of the village with many names next to large estates. He assumed it was the major clans of the village, and as he looked through he found the name Uzumaki next to one of the buildings. Without any hesitation he ran out the tower and found his bearings before running off into the direction that the map claimed the Uzumaki estate was. Unlike most of the other buildings in the village, the Uzumaki estate was right next to the outer moat and surrounded by forest. The estate was quite large, its walls going 12 feet into the air with large wooden gates that had intricate carvings of dragons on the top and bottom. The bottom dragon coming out of the water and the top one from the what looked like clouds. The two dragons met and intertwined into a whirlpool shape in the middle. Naruto opened the gates and walked into the large estate. The estate had one central building that had two wings branched out of it. As he entered the building, the central or was the living and kitchen area. Judging by the amount of furniture, it was obvious that either the clan was very large and made sure everyone had the best accommodations, or the clan had many guests of high importance. Stopping only a moment to marvel at the area, he then made his way down one of the wing's corridors. As he made his way down the corridor, he saw that the wing held bedrooms, dens, and bathrooms. What amazed Naruto was that every bedroom had its own personal studies connected to them. Seeing an opportunity to find some information, he checked the studies only to find that they were mostly recreational studies, finding anything from books on astronomy and medicine to comics and romance novels depending on the taste of the former owner. He did however find photos of the previous owners, and almost all of them were redheads, and he had yet to find any blondes. This worried him greatly that this might be a different group of Uzumakas. Even though Uzumaki was an uncommon name, it was not out of the realm of possibility that he just shared a name with this clan and nothing more. He figured since his life liked to torment him, he wouldn't put it past the heavens to mess with him by finding a family that had his name but no blood ties. Even with these thoughts in his head, he did not lose hope and thought maybe the other wing of the building could give some answers. After he reached the end of the wing, he crossed the courtyard to enter the other wing. The courtyard that separated the two wings was full of thick bamboo that would allow one to only see a few feet in front of them. This was obviously not an accidental occurrence due to the fact that there were clear-cut trails through the bamboo. As Naruto made his way through the courtyard, he found the reason for such thick foliage. At the center of the courtyard was a large hot spring capable of holding at least 20 people. As he walked past the spring, the steam rose off the water's surface, just inviting him to submerge himself in its warmth. He decided against it, seeing that finding out if this clan was his and who they were was more important than the inviting water at the moment. He then made it to the other side of the courtyard and to the other wing. This wing much taller than the living corridor, and as he made his way into the building, he found out that the entire wing was a one large dojo meant for training. The floor was not wood but a large slab of stone with a large bronze pendant that consisted of the same symbol that was found on the gates placed at the center. As Naruto made his way to the center, he found it harder to breathe and his energy just seemed to be drained from him. By the time he made it, the pendant, his lungs and muscles were burning. He looked at the pendant and grew frustrated. Nowhere did he find anything that told him about the place. Stupid abandoned villages, with its stupid statues, and stupid abandoned houses, yelled Naruto. The poor 13-year-old had searched the house high and low and got no info that would help him. As he started to walk away, his foot caught the rig of the pendant, causing him to face plant right into the middle of the pendant. Blood shot right out of his nose as a result from the impact raining down on the pendant beneath him. The young blonde quickly checked his nose to make sure it wasn't broken. After confirming he was fine, he tried to get to his feet only to find out that his body felt too heavy to pick itself up. As he laid there frustrated even more, he then noticed something. The pendant was now glowing and giving off a soft hum. Then the sound of stone slabs grinding against each other emanated beneath the pendant. Sections of the pendant then retracted into the ground, creating a spiral staircase. No, Naruto was unfortunately laying on top of the pendant, tumbled down the stairway until he landed face first on the bottom step. I swear if this house makes me do another faceplant, I'm getting some gas and matches and burn the goddamn place down, yelled Naruto. After his little tirade, Naruto was not greeted by silence but a small giggle that echoed of the walls. Naruto froze. He looked around the basement, seeing that it was made completely from stone. It looked almost like a library with long corridor that almost mimicked shelves. On this shelves were hundreds of symbols and blood seals, and scattered throughout were work desks for studying. It was obvious that this was where the clan kept its secrets, and it was the info he needed. The potential info was not what had Naruto's attention though. He knew he heard a giggle from someone in this room. He started towards where he thought the source of the giggle was. As he wandered through the basement he found it was as large as the dojo above. He scanned the corridors trying to find out if his mind was playing tricks. The laughter was too clear to be mind tricks and he would be damned if he let someone sneak up on him. As he made it to the end of the room he found another door with the swirling dragon symbol on it. He opened it to find a circular stadium amphitheater. He guessed that this is where the clan would hold their meetings. As he looked at the theater floor he saw a pedestal in the middle on the floor. On the pedestal was a large crystal that glowed a brilliant hue of red. As he looked at the gem he became entranced by its glow. The feeling he got was one of comfort, as if he was held by a gentle embrace. He then went closer to the crystal and reached out. Something inside of him telling him this was something that was meant for him and he needed to hold. As he reached his hands the gem glow grew brighter and then shot waves of small lighting paralyzing him. As his muscles locked and he fell backwards unable to move. The gem started to hum and squeal and lit the room with blinding white light blinding Naruto. "You're alive, thank God my little baby is still alive," said a heavenly voice. Naruto, still blinded by the light, stood shocked. The voice seemed to be full of joy and sorrow. As his vision came back he looked to see a ghostly figure quite visible but also translucent. As he looked at her he saw her fiery red hair and her teal eyes full of tears and a quivering lip. He then realized this was the woman in the picture back at the tower. As he felt control come back to his boy he sat up and looked at the women. "Excuse me, but why do you look so sad and happy at the same time?" Naruto said to the aberration. "Because I'm your mother and I finally get to lay eyes on you for the first time since you were a baby," said the women. Naruto stared at the women shocked. The women had claimed to be his mother and he didn't know how to react. His whole life he had lived without family and now suddenly here he was not only facing someone who was related to him by blood but the very person that gave birth to him. "You must hate me for leaving you all alone," said the women, tears now falling freely from her eyes. Naruto looked at the women. For the longest time his greatest fear was that his parents had abandoned him, leaving him to the hell that was known as his childhood. But as he looked at the eyes of the lady he could tell they were filled with regret and sorrow. "What happened? Why did you leave and why are you here now?" asked Naruto. "Well, it's a long and sad story, so I'll start by asking, do you know what you hold inside of you?" asked the women. "You mean the demon fox that the Yondaime sealed into me?" asked Naruto dejectedly. The redhead, picking up and the sadness of Naruto's answer, narrowed her eyes. She half expected poor treatment to her son and his mannerisms on the subject proved it. "I see, I feared this much. But why did you refer to the fourth in such a formal tone?" asked the redhead. Naruto, taken back by the question, looked at her like she was crazy. "Because he was the Hokage and I didn't know him, so he needs to be respected," said Naruto. "Those damn bastards didn't tell you anything, did they?" said the woman, frustration laced in her voice. Naruto looked at her in confusion. He had figured out with all the things he had seen in the abandoned village that his mother was a person of high importance, but even so, to be angry with the fact that he held formalities with the fourth seemed a little off. Clearly she knew something he didn't. "I guess I'll have to start from the beginning. Why don't you get into a comfortable position? This is a long story," said the women. Naruto quickly sat on the floor in front of the women and crossed his legs. His eyes stared up at her attentively, waiting to learn what she knew. "First off, my name is Kushina and the village you are in is the hidden whirlpool village. It was the first shinobi village to ever come into existence. In fact, the first Hokage used our model to create Kahona a few years after our founding. We were a powerful village full of many clans of shinobi. In fact, before our fall we were part of the great elemental villages like Mizu, Suna, Kumo, Kahona and Iwa," said Kushina. "Wow, you guys must have been really good to be part of the elemental villages," said Naruto. Kushina flashed a foxy grin at her son and chuckled. "Yep, we were beyond good. We even had to right to call our leaders cages. You most likely saw their monuments on the cliff rings. You see, son, our village was a true hidden village. It is actually underneath the waters of our country, the Whirlpool country, a country that truly lives up to its name. It's a country that's now divided between the water and the fire country and is full of whirlpools ranging from all shapes and sizes. When you look outside you see those swirling clouds. Well, those are not clouds at all but are in fact the makings of a whirlpool that hides and protects our village. Those monuments are also more than show as well. You see, when someone becomes the Uzakage, they pump their chakra into a seal that forever powers the whirlpool that hides the village and prevents attacks from penetrating it," said Kushina. "So you guys were impossible to attack directly," said Naruto. "We would have been if it wasn't for the fact that we didn't finish the whirlpool yet. You see, son, a whirlpool becomes unstoppable when it has 4 source points. The first 2 create the whirlpool vortex and gives it power, while the second 2 create the stability to make it unstoppable and impenetrable. We only had 3 points, and before we could finish, the third shinobi war had hit its zenith. I was the Sandame Uzakage and I made the 3rd point. To create the statue and the seal you need a large amount of chakra, and it was probably another generation away before we had someone that had the strength to create the final source point," said Kushina. Naruto merely nodded at his mother, realizing that such a weakness might be able to be exploited. The war had intensified between us and the mist, so I was forced to seek an alliance. At that point we started message negations with Kahona, trying to seek help. Unfortunately, just about halfway through those negotiations, the mist found the village. They started using every jutsu in their arsenal to break in. Slowly the cliff ring that surrounds the village started to crack. It was only a matter of time before they would fall and destroy everything. So I sent a request for refuge in Kahona. If I got everyone out and lead the mist away from the village, the seals of the statues would reform the cliffs and eventually we could live here again," said Kushina. "So that's why everything still looks in good shape. You left before the village itself was destroyed and the walls reformed later. So what happened after that? I assume everyone got out safe?" asked Naruto. Kushina looked down on her son. She knew the next part would not be easy for him to swallow, but the boy needed to know the truth. They would have been safe if the place I had sent them for refuge was not a lion's den. As the evacuation had started, about half of the shinobi, including myself, engaged the mist and led them away. Why waste energy breaking into a hard place when the thing you're after is on the run? The plan worked as the civilians and younger ninja headed to Kahona. My force fought the mist. The mist, however, had more forces, and slowly but surely my comrades fell until I was the only one left. We had succeeded, though the mist were so dead set on killing the elites and the Uzakage, they not only lost track of the civilians but the location of the village. So after I lost the mist, I headed towards Kahona's refuge pickup point to deal with the diplomatic issues. But when I got there I saw a terrible sight. All of the people in the refuge group were slaughtered. Every man, woman and child I had sworn to protect lay dead. I started looking to find out what happened, and I found my answer. I found Kahona Anbu bodies with shrunken that only whirlpool ninja use sticking in them. Kahona had killed them, said Kushina. What? Why would they do that? I thought they were shinobi of honor. Why would they agree to help you and then kill everyone? Yelled Naruto. I asked that question myself, son. I had heard they were honorable people, so I was outraged. I then made a beeline for Kahona with one goal: to kill the Hokage and destroy as much of the village as I could. As I got closer to village, I found the fourth walking through the forest outside the village. I had seen his picture in the bingo books, and I decided that the village's first sight of me would be me dragging their leader's body into the village. Said Kushina. But you didn't kill him because he died fighting to Fox. Said Naruto. You're right. In fact, I'm glad I didn't kill him, because if I did you wouldn't be here. Said Kushina. What, because of the fox I wouldn't be here? Asked Naruto, clearly confused. Kushina chuckled. Her son was definitely his mother's son. I see you got my thick head. Naruto, have you ever seen a picture of the fourth, and if you have, describe him? Asked Kushina. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. Asked Naruto, still in the dark of what his mother was implying. Well, what are your physical characteristics? Said Kushina. Well, I have blonde hair and blue eyes, said Naruto, who then froze as he put the pieces together. You mean he was my dad? Yelled Naruto at the top of his lungs. Yes, he was, but seeing the way you act clearly means you got my personality. Said Kushina as she chuckled lightly. How did you go from trying to kill him to having me with him? Said a surprised Naruto. Well, lucky for him I was full of rage, and being full of rage and attacking someone of his caliber never bodes well, even though I was as good as him. Also, it was lucky for me he kept a level head and wanted to find out why an angry redhead was trying to cut his head off. He subdued me and demanded an explanation, to which I cussed a storm at him, interlacing what I saw at the refuge pickup point. As I started to cool down, I saw confusion in his face. He then told me he didn't have any negotiations with us and asked for proof of an attack on us. I gave him one of the Anbu masks that I had brought with me to use as a disguise to infiltrate the village. I remember his eyes darken as he examined the mask. He then told me that I had been deceived. It turns out that my alliance proposal never made it to your father," said Kushina. "Who did it go to then? Did an enemy from another village stage the whole thing to cause conflict?" asked Naruto. "No, it turns out that a man on the Konoha Council by the name of Danzo had intercepted the message and was posing as the Hokage. The man was in charge of a division of Anbu known as Root. The man in every sense was a war hawk, willing to sacrifice everybody's life but his own all to feed his craving for power," said Kushina. Naruto looked at his mother as killer intent leaked from her. Clearly this man was bad if he could make this woman who up until then had been gently and kind leak killer intent. "So your father decided to help me by sneaking me into the village and disband the Root and serve Danzo justice. We had to be discreet about it and catch him by the books or we could have had a civil war on our hands, so I posed as a civilian and we followed his paper trail. It took us 2 years to catch him, and although we couldn't kill him, your father personally caused the loss of his arm and his seat on the council. Then Root was disbanded and some executed on grounds of treason. After the whole ordeal, me and your father had grown close and soon we found out that we were going to have you. I found myself content with living in Konoha and living happily with your father and you in the very village that caused me so much grief," said Kushina. "Then came the fox," said Naruto with his eyes downcast at the floor. "Yes, but thing is it seemed like you were meant to be its jailer, Naruto. You weren't expected for another week but you came out healthy that night and your father was out of options. I remember the ritual very well. I was tired from the birth but your father carried me with you in my arms to the ritual cave. Your seal was forged and your father then went to perform the summoning. I watched as a blinding light came from the battlefield and red chakra entered your body. I was so worried that something would happen and I would lose both of you. Luckily you survived, but the lose of your father turned Konoha politically upside down. The third had to give some of his power to the council and they abused it. Next thing I knew Danzo was back on the council and assassination attempts started happening because he leaked information about you out. I needed to figure something out, so I had my friend Yoshino promise me if something happened to me she would at least look after you during your infant years since she was about to have her son Shikamaru," said Kushina. "You knew Shikamaru's mom?" asked Naruto. "One of only 3 people I trusted in that village beside your father. I'm sure that little Shika treated you better than anyone else seeing as you were probably breast buddies when you were little," said Kushina with a foxy grin. "Don't you me best buddies?" asked Naruto. "Nope, Yoshino agreed to be your wet nurse so you and little Shika were eating from the same trough so to speak," said Kushina, her foxy grin still plastered to her face. Naruto, realizing what she meant, started to blush furiously and tried his hardest to calm himself down before he responded. "But asking someone to do that meant you knew something bad was going to happen to you," said Naruto. Kushina's foxy grin grew to a sad smile. "I see, despite my thick head some of your father's insight made it through. You're right, with Danzo rebuilding the Root and with a target on my back for being the one who stripped him of power, I knew my time was short. So I used this gem that is under me. It is called a Genjutsu stone. They only exist within these village walls and create powerful illusions that can't be dispelled, but one can also create a split fingerprint and the result is what in front of you. I wanted to teach you some of our clan's jutsu along with some of your father's, but I could feel Danzo breathing down my neck. So I put a seal on you that would go off if your life was put in danger and transport you here through a whirlpool shunshin. I then came here to hid the stone and set it to seal the split fingerprint when I died. Unfortunately, as I made my way back to Konoha I was ambushed and after I was subdued Danzo slit my throat," said Kushina. She then looked at her son and then looked at the floor in front of her, sadness emanating from her. "I'm so sorry, I should have been stronger to protect you," said Kushina as she started to cry. Naruto looked at the women. Someone who was on the level of the fourth himself cried distraught mother's pain. The women sacrificed so much just to see so much sorrow. He quickly jumped up to hug her but his arms went right through her non-existent. This sight only depressed the women more. "Please don't cry, if you hadn't did what you did I would never have known you, now I have a chance," said Naruto. Kushina looked at her son, the torrent of tears slowing down. As she looked at her son she felt less regret as she looked into the boy's eyes and saw something that made her glad she did what she did. She saw hope in the pristine blue eyes. I guess you're right now that we have this time together, but what should we do with it? Maybe I can help you with your dream or your goal in life. Naruto, what is it? Asked Kushina. Well, I wanted to be Hokage, but I don't want to head back to Konoha after what I found out, said Naruto. Kushina looked at her son. The boy clearly had been dead set on the goal, but now he didn't know what to do. Kushina's thoughts were to bad Konoha doesn't do things like the whirlpool did to gain cageship. Then her thoughts were paused as she had an epiphany. Naruto, said Kushina. Naruto quickly redirected his attention back to his mother. Why not try for Uzakage, said Kushina. But there is no one here. Almost by default I would be the Uzakage, said Naruto. Naruto, didn't you listen? To become Uzakage you have to do the statue ritual successfully. You could rebuild the village and help people like you. I know about a bunch of clans that had branch members leave the village to gain their own wealth before the fall of the village. Not to mention that you can bring in people that see you for you, not the fox. Maybe even find a wife and give me some grandbabies, said Kushina. Naruto, ignoring the last statement, thought it over. His mother had thought up a good idea. Anyone could inherit a village full of people and run it, but only a great one could build it from scratch. Well, he did have the infrastructure of the village. But even so, to bring people together to create a powerful village would be something very special. I like that idea, so what should I do then? Asked Naruto. Well, first things first, off to bed with you, young man. The statue seal can kill someone if they're not ready. So tomorrow we are going to start some of the most intense training in your life, said Kushina. Naruto smiled. He was going to get trained to be a cage by cage. So with a yawn he got up. Where should I sleep? He asked. You're the head of the clan now, so the master bed. It's the double door room on the second floor of living wing, and come down here as soon as you wake up so we can get started, said Kushina. As Naruto made his way to the door that would lead him back to the dojo, he turned around and looked at his mother. Good night, Mom. I love you, he said quietly but still loud enough to hear. I love you too, baby, said Kushina as her form receded back into the stone. Naruto made his way back to the living wing. As he made his way to the clan head bedroom, he walked into a large room with a nice king-sized bed there to welcome him. He looked out the large windows of the room to see a great view of the river by the estate. As he got undressed and slid into the bed, where he cracked a smile. He had found his home, somewhere he belonged, and he would make sure he was strong enough not only to build it but protect it as well. Naruto laid exhausted on the dojo floor, panting and sweating profusely. The boy had been enduring his mother training, and to say that it was a rough training regimen would be a vast understatement. Naruto's training has started a couple of months ago, and his mother had him hit the ground running on it. Kushina had learned of Naruto's ability to summon a large amount of clones, and knowing the jutsu herself had him putting the clone's ability to gain information and experience to good use. She started pushing the boy harder on the academic side of the shinobi life after Naruto reveled that his education in Konoha was spotty at best. Soon the Uzumaki archives were filled to capacity with Naruto's learning everything about the history of the whirlpool, its people and the basic protocol that ran the village. In addition to the domestic, he studied the foreign, mainly information on the various clans in the shinobi world. The information had been gathered when the whirlpool was the only ninja village. So access to info on the clans was much more accessible before the various villages were able to hide the info. The studying had started to pay off. Naruto now had a nice amount of knowledge in his head, knowing how to act diplomatically and how to strategically kill in battle. The only thing that was more intense than the study was the physical training. The dojo floor in the Uzumaki compound was made of a type of stone that sucked chakra from the body. The simple act of running laps and stealth training in the dojo was a draining experience. Add in the control exercises like tree and water walking, you had the prefect exercise that pushed physically and increased the control of chakra to a point that was impossible to achieve if done elsewhere. As Naruto laid on the dojo floor, Kushina looked at him with pride. The two had managed to correct the problems that Konoha's education had caused. Kushina was now ready to start teaching the boy the jutsu that made the whirlpool a force to be reckoned with. That would have to wait though. The small amount of usable rations that Naruto had procured from the entire village were almost up. Even though she was a little nervous, it seemed like Naruto would have to learn the layout of the country as well as the way to leave the village, so to avoid detection a little earlier than anticipated. Naruto, could you come here a minute? Said Kushina to the exhausted blonde. Naruto looked at his mother and walked over the symbol in the middle of the dojo floor where the genjutsu stone was placed. Even though the training was exhausting, the time he was spending with his mother was priceless. Thanks to the little stone, he had gotten a glimpse at what would have happened if tragedy had befallen his family. He could also tell that his mother had similar sentiments. The look of pride when he did something especially well was one sign. Certain things, however, always reminded Naruto though that she was but a ghost of his past. The biggest was the lack of any physical contact. Naruto had decided that hugging the crystal, saying it was the best hug he can ever give, was the closest he would get to an actual hug with his mother. Even though the gesture was odd, he could tell every time he did it that his mother appreciated it. Naruto, it seems that your food stock is getting kind of low. So guess what? You get to explore and learn the layout of the country as well as learn the proper way to leave and exit the village," said Kushina. "Really cool, I always wondered how that worked." None of the family archives said anything other than something like the northern or southern entrance. Naruto replied, "That type of info is in the cage tower because it's a security issue. Even though the basics were common knowledge to our people, the logistics of it could be disastrous if fallen into the wrong hands. The entrances to our village were our lifeline to the world. They were also very hidden, much like our villages. As you know, the cliff walls at the village's edge are separated from the floor by a moat, right?" said Kushina. "Yeah," said Naruto. "Have you ever wondered why that is?" said Kushina. "I thought it was an aesthetic choice. I mean, so many other things like fountains and pools are around for nothing other than to make it look cool," said Naruto, confused. Kushina chuckled lightly. The boy had a library of knowledge crammed in his head, and she knew from some of his retorts that if need be he could use that knowledge, but yet he could say such things, that it would make you chuckle. This thought misted her eyes. He acted so much like her when she was younger. Well, despite that, the whirlpool always did have a fetish when it came to reflecting pools and fountains. The outer moat does serve a purpose, and a very important one at that. It acts like a giant port for the entire village. At the north, south, east and west points of the village are trading ports on the inner island, and across the moat from them are tunnels that go 10 miles out in each direction. At the end of that 10 miles there are the entry and exit hubs along with a barracks for guards and exiting troops. Like the village, the hubs are hidden by a whirlpool about 500 feet above the hub floor. The only difference though is that the whirlpools at the hubs can be adjusted to raise and lower ships to the tunnel canal or up to waters of the whirlpool country, said Kushina. Like a canal lock, cool. So that's how people got in and out of the village, replied Naruto. Very good analogy on how it works, but for the ninja there is a special staircases that leads to hidden watchtowers. They were constructed so we could have surveillance on the waters above and didn't need to rely on boats to get troops to surface. That will be the way you exit. So grab some paper and a sealing scroll and I'll list the stuff that you will need. You are to get everything on the list and don't you dare come back with nothing but ramen, said Kushina, the last part in a very dangerous tone. Naruto listed off the things that he was to gather, procured the money that was needed to purchase the goods from the clan treasury, and after a quick navigation lesson on how to transverse the whirlpool country left the compound to head to one of the exits of Whirlpool Village. The boy headed to the northern exit, seeing that the closest merchant town was to the north. Finding the shipyards was quite easy as each one had a road that went straight from the port to center area of the village. The shipyard was a bay that stood opposite the moat of a giant arch that continued into darkness. Using a small walking bridge, Naruto entered the tunnel and walked into the darkness. Since there was no power to the light sources, Naruto was forced to use a flashlight. The tunnel's architecture was nothing out of the ordinary, a basic archway with a canal that could fit large shipping vessels taking up most of the floor, while on one side a walkway that was large enough to let 2 shipping carts move abreast. But as he shined the light on the walls and ceiling, it was clear that despite such practical architecture, the people of the former Whirlpool couldn't keep from bringing their dramatic flair to the walls. Carved into the walls were statues depicting animals, plants, battles, and mountain ranges in a mural that stretched through the entire tunnel. He then came to the entrance hub, which was a moon pool covered by a pantheon-like dome. With light spilling in from the hole in the top of the dome, Naruto turned off the flashlight and made his way to the hub barracks. The barracks conformed to a Spartan design with sleeping quarters and administrative offices. The design made it obvious that when working here you had to be all business, but considering that it was the point where you entered the village, it was quite justified. The back of the barracks was where he found the watchtower staircase. The spiral staircase was 15 feet wide, making it easier for squads to move up and down the watchtower. The blonde quickly moved up the stairs in full speed and made it to the watchtower deck. The deck was carved inside a large tree that stood 50 feet above the waters of the whirlpool country. The tower, not even being the largest tree in the area, didn't stand out at all, making it a perfect lookout position. He quickly ran down the side of the tree and made his way north to a small port by the name of Fukuoka, where he would fill up on supplies to last him. Unbeknownst to the blonde, another former genin hopeful of Konoha was walking the streets of Fukuoka. Her purple bangs to one side and dull brown eyes matching her tattered outfit. The girl hid in the alleyways, reflecting on her past actions and shames. In the early academy days she had been hot stuff. She was the tallest in her class, and with a larger chakra reserve than most of her fellow kunoichi, she had used it to her advantage. But being an orphan had finally caught up to her. With many of her classmates being part of clans or families with members already in the shinobi ranks, her flaws became much more apparent. Soon, instead of being one of the top kunoichi candidates, she was close to the bottom of the barrel. Attention was being made to the others while she was left with only her friends Kasumi and Nori. Soon those friendships were on their last feet as well. To keep attention on her, she did something that was completely out of character. She started belittling people she knew had bigger self-esteem than herself. Originally she had been a proud, self-reliant person that didn't need to put people down to make herself feel better. But with the fear of loneliness coming upon her, she needed to find a way to keep the attention of her two final friends before they decided she was not good enough for her. So she adopted the role of the bully to keep the friends she had left. She knew that many people might look down on her, but if she could keep her remaining friends, she didn't care. The plan started out smoothly, with each person she picked on submitting, and her friends saw her as a strong friend to have. Soon, however, the plan backfired when she had decided her next target was a pink-haired girl with a slightly larger forehead. The girl started out as every other girl she had decided to pick on, but a flower-loving blonde from a prominent clan decided that she would stick up for the girl and a few poisonous flowers. Later, Amy was humiliated. As she looked across the alleyway she was sitting in, she remembered the conversation with her so-called friends that had transpired after her run-in with the Yamanka heiress. "I thought you were going to be a great kunoichi, but look at you. You couldn't even notice that only the root of the flower is poisonous, not the stems," yelled Kasumi. "Yeah, we're supposed to be shinobi hopefuls and you made us look like idiots," Nori added. "Please guys, I know I messed up, but maybe if we work together we can become better than those two," said Amy, letting some of her real self show. Immediately the two girls saw that the girl they thought was ruthless, something they liked, was now acting like someone who would preach of honor and redemption, something they had enough of during the lectures of class. "Where did you get that load of crap? We thought you were tough and ruthless to your enemies, now look at you talking about if we work together we'll be better. I get enough of that crap in class. It's obvious that you're nothing but a weakling orphan that thought she was big stuff," said Kusumi. "I think we should show her what happens to weaklings that don't know their place," said Nori, and she pulled out a kunai. Kusumi followed her partner's lead and rushed the surprised purple-haired girl. Not able to react quick enough, Amy felt a piercing pain in the area around her collarbone. To her horror, the girls had stabbed her with the kunai. She fell down in pain as her former friends proceeded to kick her relentlessly. With every kick, Amy screamed in pain, with tears of both emotional and physical pain falling from her eyes. "Look at the weakling cry. Poor little girl, no mommy and daddy to help you. Why don't we put her out of her misery?" said Nori. "I agree, she's exactly what this village doesn't need," said Kasumi. As the girls slowly strolled toward the injured Amy, and Anbu appeared right before them. "That is enough, girls," said the Anbu. The girls stopped in their tracks. They knew they were in trouble now, their minds turning, trying to find a reasonable excuse. But before they could ponder anymore, the Anbu grabbed them and shunshined out of the area, leaving only Amy in the forest with a kunai in her shoulder. She laid there for what seemed like hours as blood loss started to make itself apparent. After trying so hard to be strong, even adopting a horrible mask of a bully, she was left alone. Why hadn't the Anbu brought anyone back? Maybe with the blood loss and pain, it had only been a few minutes when it felt like hours. She soon started to notice that her vision was starting to be consumed by the darkness of unconsciousness. But a voice prevented her from going any farther into the dark abyss. "Oh my God, don't worry, I'm here to help," said the voice. Her vision impaired, she could only make out the torso of her savior and a white t-shirt with a red swirl in the middle covering her as a makeshift blanket. The torso of her savior was obviously a male and she would forever remember the intricate tattoo on his stomach, but she couldn't get a look at the boy head and face. The boy continued to dress her wounds until she started to hear the sounds of what sounded like an angry mob coming towards them. Fear was now consuming her. Whatever this boy had done was defiantly bad considering that a mob was chasing him. "Good, don't worry, they won't hurt you, and they can help you much better than I can," said the voice as the figure blurred out her sight at great speed. Soon a crowd was upon her, whispering and picking her up as she blacked out. Rain poured from the skies above Fukuoka as Amy couldn't decide if she was grateful for the savior she received that day or curse his name for what her life afterward. She had woken up in the hospital and discharged quickly. She however had nowhere to go. She had left the orphanage to live with her friends, but after the previous day's events she suspected that if they weren't in custody they would try to finish what they started. She had little to no chance of pass the genin exam, and the orphanage kicked people out when they were 11, which she was only a few months away from. Her dreams of being a kunoichi dashed. She decided that the best thing to do was leave. She had nothing to attach here to Konoha anymore, so maybe she could start anew somewhere else. She traveled for the next 2 years until her funds became depleted. Unfortunately, it was Fukuoka where her funds had given out. The town was basically a slum. Since it was so far from any strategic location, shinobi were a rare sight, and this had made the town into the perfect haven for bandits and missing nin. With little to no honest work, and the only jobs that would take her would involve her being on her back for most of the time, since she wanted to keep her last shreds of dignity and innocence intact. All that was left was to beg, barely getting enough to eat, let alone enough to get ferry fare out of the waterlogged port. She was, for lack of a better word, stuck in this hellhole, fearing her safety. Rape was a common crime, and she knew she was one of the lucky ones that had yet to be a victim of the crime. Unfortunately, once she exited her train of thought, she looked up. She saw several figures that reeked of alcohol surrounding her. It seemed that her luck had finally ran out. Naruto, after walking the distance between the tower and Fukuoka, looked upon the town with distaste. His mother had told him about the town, and said that it was a quiet little community that was tight-knit, and outside from the rare bar fight between friends was a safe community. That however was with the presence of whirlpool shinobi, and it seemed that without it bandits had stripped the town of any sense of community. Naruto quickly made a mental note that as soon as the village was stabilized and full of shinobi, that towns like Fukuoka that were in the general area would get a prompt facelift and would become the towns they had been when the whirlpool was around. He finally made it to an indoor market and started gathering supplies that he would need to continue his training. Amy struggled under the drunk's grip, and using the little taijutsu she had, she quickly disabled one of the men that thought she was unable to defend herself. Lucky for her, they were run-of-the-mill bandits that had no ninja training. Even though they were in essence nothing but brawlers, they had come prepared, and seeing the girl was not as defenseless as they thought, had pulled out weaponry. Amy was now surrounded by the remaining men, all with knives and swords. She was unarmed, but she would be damned if she let these men touch her without a fight. One man swooped in and with his sword attempted to slice one of the girl's arms off. Amy had seen the attack for the corner of her eye and grappled the man's hand, twisting it around his body and piercing his back with his own sword. This however left a huge opening on her own back, and capitalizing on it, a man stabbed the back of her shoulder blade and twisted her to the ground. "I like them feisty," said the bandit with predatory grin on his face. Amy was now in a very bad position, both figuratively and literally. So she squirmed as the man attempted to pull off the rags that she was wearing off of her. True to her own resolve, she refused to down without a fight, biting and kicking the entire time. Frustrated with the girl's stubbornness, one of the men took his knife and slammed it through the young girl's bicep, pinning her to the ground. The act caused Amy to shriek in pain, but even pinned she tried to thrash about. But hunger and now blood loss were taking their toll, and her body became harder to move until it finally gave. She looked up in horror at the men, who were chuckling darkly and slowly loosening their pants. Amy closed her eye, waiting for the act the men were intent on doing, but suddenly the weight of the men holding her down suddenly disappeared, accompanied with the sounds of grunts of pain and fist colliding into flesh. Then the only thing heard were soft but deliberate footsteps walking towards her. "Don't worry, I'm here to help," said a calm, assuring voice. Ami's eyes shot wide open and looked up to a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes that would be the envy of any sapphire. "It seems that they roughed you up a bit, are you okay?" said the boy. No response came from Amy, and with the blood loss she had received she simply blacked out. The blonde looked her over and dressed the wounds the girl had received. As he wiped away the blood on her face, he instantly recognized the girl. The girl had disappeared from class at the academy after he found her in the woods with a kunai in her shoulder. He had assumed that she merely quit the academy and went to find other things. As he looked at her clothing, he realized that the poor girl had hit rock bottom. Deciding that the girl could use a bed and a hot meal and he could use someone other than his mother to talk to, he picked the girl up in a bridal position and ran off to the hidden whirlpool. Amy woke up dazed and confused, her vision desperately trying to focus the surrounding area into clarity. Surprise came to her when she realized she was in a bed and not the cold alleyway of Fukuoka. Then the events of what happened came back to her. She remembered the events that unfolded before her slip to unconsciousness. She got up from the soft bed and decided to look for her savior. She exited her room to see an entire wing of a very large building. Whoever had saved her defiantly was of a high class. She continued through the house until she came to the central lobby area. The vaulted ceilings and large kitchen, dining and living areas soon made the purple girl envious. It was obvious that this guy had everything a large family to loved him and a house fit for royalty. But the sounds of a hurricane started to become clear in her ears. She made her way to the other wing where the sounds became louder as she opened the door to what looked like a dojo. A sight that would forever ingrain itself in her mind then came into view. Two dragons, one made of water and one made for wind, intertwined each other in a beautiful dance of destruction. Following the tales back to their origins, one dragon came out of swirling clouds above and one came out of a whirlpool on the bottom. But looking at the heads of the dragons was where the most interesting sight was. For a blonde boy seemed to float in between the two monstrosities, then disappear and reappear in an instant. As the dragons slammed into the training dummies that were set around the dojo, they were not being destroyed in an explosion of splinters, they were being vaporized, for a lack of a better word. Amy could only stare in awe at the power of the jutsu. "Alright Naruto, that is enough," said Kushina. Naruto cancelled the jutsu and soon the water and clouds receded and disappeared. "How did I do on that one?" asked Naruto as he jogged over the center of the dojo. "Well, you got the elemental parts of the jutsu to harmonized, but it seems that you still can get the space-time area of the jutsu right. From what I can tell, 10 feet away from each dragon head is as far as you can go. Most shinobi can jump out of that range before you can instigate the teleportation," said Kushina. "Come on, this jutsu really hard and you know it. Dad couldn't even do it. You also said yourself that it took you a year to even get where I was," said Naruto. "I know that, but you are on an accelerated program and we don't have the luxury of time. So if I hear any more back sass from you again, I will find a way, even in this form, to make you regret the action," said Kushina in a dangerous tone. Naruto quickly shut his mouth and mumbled an apology. It was at this point Amy got a good look at the two. She first looked at the ghostly apparition. She could tell the woman was very strong just by the way she held herself. Add in the red mane of hair the woman had and you could tell she was a force to be reckoned with. She then turned her attention to the boy, the one that saved her. Now that her vision wasn't blurred, she could see all the features of the boy. She saw the 3 whisker-shaped scars on his face and depression instantly set in. She knew who the boy was, the prankster that according to the teachers had no talent and according to the hierarchy of the class was all but an outcast. "I see that the girl you saved is up and about, Naruto," said Kushina. Naruto turned his head and looked at the purple-haired girl. The girl was zoning out and didn't notice that she was under the gaze of the 2 Uzumakis. "Hey, I'm glad to see that you're awake and moving around okay," said Naruto. Amy, being brought out of her stupor, glared at the blonde. "You!" yelled Amy angrily. Naruto looked in confusion. All he did was save the girl from being raped. So why was she so mad? "Huh, why are you so mad?" asked Naruto. "Why am I so mad? Why am I so mad? Because Camille likes to screw me over, that's why. He stuck me in that slum after destroying my life and then to throw salt in the wounds. The only help I ever received comes from the guy that did nothing in class but goofed off and play pranks," yelled Amy. "Naruto, what is talking about with you and pranks?" asked Kushina, halting Ami's rant. Naruto froze. When describing his academy days, he had conveniently left out the part where he tended to goof off and play pranks to gain attention. I kind of played pranks to get attention," said Naruto nervously. "What type of pranks?" asked Kushina in a more dangerous tone. "Well, one time I kind of painted graffiti on the Hokage monument," said Naruto. "Really? Then what did you paint on Minato's face?" said Kushina, her voice filled with righteous might. Naruto froze instantly. What would he tell her? He had not only dishonored his father with that stunt but the husband of the women who was now in front of him. "I swear if I had known he was said Naruto. "What did you paint on his face?" growled Kushina. "Swirls like the Akamichis have," said Naruto, his eyes staring straight at the ground. Naruto waited for the backlash to come, but all he heard was laughter. Looking up, he saw his ghostly mother rolling around on the ground laughing so hard tears were coming out. "What's so funny?" said a confused Naruto. "Oh my god, I can't believe it, you did that to his monument," said Kushina in between laughs. "Yeah, it was funny, but not that funny," said Naruto. No, you don't get it. Your father loved ramen as much as you and he ate like you do too. So as a joke while he was sleeping I took a permanent marker and drew the exact same thing on his face. He walked around town for nearly 2 days never figuring out that I did it, and the whole time he was scratching his head trying to figure out why everyone was snickering at him," said Kushina. "Then why did you act so angry?" yelled Naruto. "Because I thought it was funny to see you squirm like that," said Kushina with a mischievous grin. Before Naruto could retort, Amy, despite being angry before, let out a little giggle at the blonde's expense. "Not you too, come on," said Naruto. Amy looked at the boy's pouting face and giggled some more. Even though she was frustrated that someone like him saved her, that pout was too cute not to giggle at it. "Alright, Naruto, call it a day and relax. I would like to have a little girl talk with our guest," said Kushina. "Fine, have fun making more jokes at my expense," said Naruto as he huffed his way out of the dojo. Once the boy had left the dojo, Kushina looked at the girl with interest. "Miss, could you take a seat here in front of me? We need to have a little talk," said Kushina. Amy complied with and sat in front of the women. "Now, last time I checked, getting raped is something that is generally something women want to avoid at all costs, so why are you angry that my son saved you?" asked Kushina. "I already told you I was saved by a prankster that did nothing," said Amy before being cut off. "Yes, I heard your little rant earlier. But Naruto told me about the condition that Fukuoka is in, so why is it that my son finds Konoha genin hopeful in tattered clothing in a place like that?" said Kushina. Amy looked up at the red-haired apparition. She saw that Kushina was giving a gaze that wanted answers but also gave the feeling of trust. Amy finally told Kushina her story, everything to being an orphan that had no one to teach her, to the betrayal of her friends and her self-imposed exile. "You have been through a lot, Miss Amy," said Kushina. "Yeah, but that is what a weakling like me is cursed to," said Amy. "Don't sell yourself short, it takes a lot of strength to go through that and still be here, and it's because of that strength that I make an offer to you," said Kushina. "What is it?" asked Amy. "You said that your grades fell because you had more chakra and no one told you how to control it," said Kushina. "Yeah, what of it?" said Amy. "Well, I know how the academy system works, and in cases where someone has large reserves, the administration has trouble dealing with them, especially if they don't hail from a family that has shinobi in it," said Kushina. "So the system was against me," said Amy dejectedly. "Yeah, but I would be willing to train you alongside Naruto if you do something for me," said Kushina. "What is it?" asked Amy. "Be a friend to Naruto, he needs someone other than me to talk to and trust," said Kushina. "But it's obvious that he's from a highly respected family, just look at this house. Konoha must love him," said Amy. "You think you're in Konoha?" asked Kushina. "Where else would he take me? He is from there, isn't he?" said Amy. Kushina sighed and told the girl to get more comfortable as she began the story of the whirlpool's demise, the events that lead to Naruto's birth, the death of his parents and his childhood. Kushina left no omissions to the story, even telling the girl of the demon fox that was sealed in him. By the end of the tale, Amy was shedding small tears of empathy for the blonde-haired boy. So because of being the fox's container they shunned him. And only for the last few months he has been happy? Asked Amy. He's still not happy, Amy. Said Kushina. What, he has every orphan's dream he got to meet you, his mother. Said Amy. Although it's true that he is happier. I'm nothing but a ghost here to guide him. He needs real interaction with people, Amy. He needs someone to be there for him, capable of eating dinner with him, training with him, even the simple human contact of a pat on the back. I can't provide that, plus someday I won't be here, and that is when he is going to need a friend the most. Said Kushina. I don't know, I can tell he is strong and I'm so far behind him, how can I be a strong friend that can support him? Said Amy. As I said earlier, don't sell yourself short. Listen, I'm not asking you to marry him, yet. Said Kushina with a foxy grin. Amy looked at her, completely surprised by the comment. What is that supposed to mean? Yelled Amy, pointing a finger at the older women. Calm down, I couldn't resist. But in all seriousness, I'll give you a night to think about it, okay? Said Kushina. Okay, responded Amy. Good, now I want you to take those towels over there and take a nice soak in the hot spring we have in the courtyard and think about the offer. Said Kushina. I'm not your student yet, so don't order me around, said Amy. Fine, if you want to walk around smelling like a gutter, and with those wounds and aching muscles from the attack, be my guest. Said Kushina. Unable to retort, Amy grabbed the towel and asked directions and made her way to the hot spring with a begrudged look on her face. As she made her way out of the dojo, Kushina watched the girl leave the entire time with a foxy grin on her face. Let's see if I'm as good at matchmaking as I think I am. Those two know each other's pain so well, I bet they can't help but connect on some level. Kushina said to herself as she receded back into the crystal below to rest for the day ahead. Naruto sat in the hot spring looking up at the stars. The night was cool and the hot spring emitted steam into a thick fog that surrounded the area. He wondered what the two women were talking about, but as the warmth of the water surrounded him, he put things to the back of his mind. Unbeknownst to him, Amy had entered the opposite side of the spring, unable to see him through the thick fog created by the steam of the spring. But unlike the blonde, she was unknowingly bathing, with her head was full of thoughts. She had been offered to be an apprentice to a cage, a deceased cage, but a cage nonetheless. Then her thoughts drifted to Naruto. She couldn't help but feel for the boy. He had been an orphan like her. A life of an orphan was one that she wouldn't want to wish on anyone. Then add in the extra burden of the fox and she couldn't imagine what that would be like. She was ignored and abandoned, even betrayed, but she never was downright hated like Naruto. A hate she thought was totally unfounded. She looked up to the stars and exhaled loudly. Naruto, who heard the exhale, jumped up, not expecting the loud noise. Who's there? Said Naruto. Amy jumped a little, thinking she was also alone. Naruto, what are you doing here? Amy responded. I swear to God I didn't know you were here. Pleaded Naruto, who knew how women tended to respond to a man anywhere near their naked bodies. Calm down, judging by your voice you're just as surprised as I am. Just stay on your side and the steam will act as a wall, okay? Said Amy. Okay, said Naruto. I guess your mom didn't think you would be using the hot spring tonight, huh? Said Amy, deciding that a conversation might kill the awkward moment. Wait, my mom suggested you to use the hot spring right now. Said Naruto. Yeah, she was pretty pushy about it too. Said Amy. I can't believe her. What's she trying to do, get me killed by an enraged girl? Yelled Naruto. What are you talking about? Asked Amy. Amy, my mom knows that every day after training I come out here to unwind. Said Naruto. Wait, if she knew then that means, said Amy. Yeah, she set us up. Said Naruto. I can't believe her, I'm going right back into that dojo and giving her a piece of my mind. Yelled Amy. Don't bother, she's probably already back inside the Genjutsu stone and she won't come out until tomorrow. Anyways, what were you guys talking about in there? Asked Naruto. Well, we talked about a lot of things, about the whirlpool, Konoha, and you a little. Said Amy. Me, what about me? Asked Naruto. Amy paused. She was very sure that the fox was a very sore subject for the blonde, and if he knew that she knew of the fox's existence in him, he would probably be scared that she would hate him. However, it seemed that the pause was enough of an answer for him. She told you about the fox, didn't she? Said Naruto with a tone that made it more of a statement than a question. Yes, replied Amy weakly. So why aren't you running away screaming about the demon? Asked Naruto. I guess it's because even though I never knew you very well, the little I did know contradicts what demons are. For one, you always goofed off and your pranks were corny grade school endeavors, something that a demon would see as beneath him. And second, you're only the second person that thought my weak ass was worth saving. A demon would have either watched with glee or killed the guys just so he could get first dibs on the act," said Amy. "Thanks, that really means a lot to me, you know," said Naruto. "I know, I was an orphan too. Being alone is more than I can take. I can't even imagine going through the stuff you had. You must be a strong person to come out of that the way you did," said Amy. "Thanks. So who was the first person to save you?" asked Naruto, trying to change the awkward path the conversation was taking. "I didn't know who he was. I was pretty out of it when he saved me. All I could make out was a tattoo on his stomach," said Amy. Naruto smirked. He knew very well who said person with the tattoo was, and his prankster tendencies kicked in. "Really, a tattoo on his stomach? I bet you he was quite the looker and you dream of him every night, huh?" said Naruto, trying his hardest to snicker. "I could care less, never saw the guy again." "Well, I'm about done. Where should I go to sleep?" asked Amy. "I about done too. Let me put on a towel and I show you where you can sleep and find some clothes you can have," said Naruto. Naruto got out of the spring and wrapped a towel around his waist, waiting for the purple-haired girl to walk towards him. "Are you decent? The last thing I need to see is you naked," yelled Amy. "Yeah, I'm decent, come on," said Naruto. Amy made her way over to the blonde and finally got a good look at him. His wet hair matted to his head. His chest and arms showed that the boy's training had been paying off. The arms and chest were chiseled but not bulky, perfect for someone who wanted not only strength but speed as well. Then she saw his navel, and as bright as day there it was, the tattoo that she would never forget. As she looked at Naruto, who had a foxy grin on his face, she put the two together. "I told you that your rescuer was a looker. Come on, I'll show you to your room," said Naruto. Amy was awestruck. She had not been saved by two different people. They were one and the same. It was this last little piece of info that pushed her to her decision. Kushina was right. Naruto needed a friend, and in reality she needed one too, and who better than someone she knew she could trust to watch her back. "That's it," yelled Amy. "What's it?" asked Naruto as he looked back at the girl who had fire in her eyes. "Your mom offered to train me alongside you, and seeing that you are trying to restart the village, what better way than to have a wingman helping you?" said Amy. Naruto looked in confusion at the girl. He had no prior knowledge of his mother's offer to the girl, but seeing that there was someone willing to help him, he gladly extended his hand out. "Well, I'm glad to hear it. Welcome to the whirlpool ranks," said Naruto. The girl extended her and promptly shook it and walked past the blonde. "Glad to accept, and another thing, Uzumaki," said Amy, eyes full of determination. "What?" Naruto responded. "Don't expect to save my ass again. In fact, expect it the other way around," Amy said confidently. The girl continued to stroll with poise to the other side of the courtyard, leaving a drop-jawed Naruto in her wake. "What are you waiting for? I want to get to bed because something tells me your mother is a slave driver when it comes to training," yelled Amy. Naruto, brought out of his stupor, merely caught up with the girl. As he showed the girl to her room and retired for the night, he knew right then and there things were defiantly going to become more interesting around here. Ami's forehead was drenched in sweat and her eyes tightly shut in concentration. Her hands and fingers flying through multiple hand signs at an alarming rate. To the left and right of her, two large whirlpools shrunken. The whirlpool equivalent to a Fuma started to glow as complex seals made their presence known on the shield like shrunken. "Alright Amy, you can do it this time. Just like Sensei said, let your chakra communicate with the seals and let them draw the proper elemental chakra from you," thought Amy to herself. Her hands came to an abrupt stop and her eyes shot wide open. "Storm dance of the twin dragons," yelled Amy. The seals of the two whirlpools shrunken wailed as Amy waited in anticipation for the two dragons to explode from the objects. The wailing grew louder and suddenly, and without warning, a small stream of water with no more pressure than a water fountain shot out of one. On the other, a stream of air that would be the envy of any hair dryer shot out. Amy fell backwards and looked up at the ceiling of the dojo for a few seconds before screaming in frustration. Through her screams she could hear clear laughter. She knew whose it was too. "Shut up, Tsukoshi," yelled Amy. At one of the walls Naruto sat reading from a large scroll marked B-ranked jutsu of the whirlpool. On his shoulder sat what appeared to be a lizard but was in fact the summons that had sworn allegiance to the Uzumaki clan. The Summon clan was known as the Storm Dragon clan due to their high abilities in water and wind attacks. Naruto had signed the contract shortly after Amy had started training with them, and often when Kushina was working with Amy he would study jutsu scrolls and would summon Tsukoshi, who had a large knowledge of whirlpool jutsu, to help him break down the logistics. Unfortunately, Tsukoshi had taken to the pastime of pestering and bickering with Amy. "Oh come on. That was funny, the look on your face was priceless. You so thought you had it, and then boom, a water fountain and a hair dryer, I love it," said Tsukoshi. "Just shut your trap, you goddamn water lizard," yelled Amy. "What did you call me?" Tsukoshi retorted. "A goddamn water lizard," replied Amy, no guilt in her voice, knowing full well where the conversation was going. "How dare you compare me, a dragon of the storm, to such a lowly creature?" yelled Tsukoshi. "Well, you're a reptile, you like swimming in the water. You better face facts, you're a fucking water lizard," yelled Amy. "Such a disrespectful girl. What I don't get is why you're even trying to do that jutsu. It's an Uzumaki jutsu that only ones of Uzumaki blood can perform. Didn't Kushina tell you that?" retorted Tsukoshi. Amy glared at the water dragon. She had spent the last month working on the jutsu, hoping to get it to the destructive level that Naruto had with it, now only to find out that she'd been spending her time working on something she couldn't actually achieve. She immediately sat right up and gawked at Kushina, who was still chuckling at the water lizard comment Amy had made. "Kushina-sensei, is what he's saying true?" asked Amy. "Yep, for the most part," Kushina replied nonchalantly. "Then why have you been making me do this stupid jutsu if I can't even perform it?" yelled Amy. "Calm down, I said for the most part. Certain criteria have to be in place for you to use it, one of them being the whirlpool shrunken you're using instead of Naruto's standard size, and a few other things after that," said Kushina. "What are the other things?" Amy asked. "I'll tell you them when you fulfill them," said Kushina. Amy merely pouted and got up to grab some water and take a break. By the way the girl sat down next to Naruto and drank from her canteen. Kushina knew that the poor girl thought she was weak. Kushina, however, knew differently. Both Naruto and Amy had been training together for few months now, and almost as if their lives depended on it. The problem was that the two only had each other to compare to. So both thought they were no longer growing as they were at the beginning of their training. Kushina, however, knew why. She had the insight and knew that the two had reached a high level in a very short amount in time. Kushina looked at the two whirlpools shrunken that were still shooting out water and air. Although the look was not impressive, the amount of the two elemental forces that were coming out of the shield like shrunken could only be produced by someone that was not part of the Uzumaki clan if they had high Jonin level chakra reserves. The two teens had been training from sunrise to sunset every day for the last 3 months, and even though they didn't see the improvement Kushina did, she knew that all they needed was experience to truly see the fruit of their labors. Naruto was ready to handle the statue summoning. Amy was also ready to handle the hardships being a high-level shinobi. There was only one obstacle in the way, and Kushina decided that tomorrow would be the day that it would be tackled. "Naruto, Amy, can you come over here?" said Kushina. The two young shinobi walked over to the women and sat down in front of her attentively. The two had learned very quickly that despite all of the teasing and tricks the women could pull, she was a very knowledgeable person and her wisdom always had great insight. "You two are to take the next 24 hours off, relax and enjoy yourselves. Do not do anything that will require chakra. So no recreational training at all, and that is an order, got it?" said Kushina. "Why mom, I was hoping to tackle the whirlpool shunshin today," whined Naruto. "Because tomorrow we're doing an exercise that will require your reserves to be at their fullest, so take your lunch. Relax for the rest of the day, have a big breakfast and lunch tomorrow, and come here and not a moment sooner," said Kushina. Fine, whatever," said Naruto and Amy as they got up. "I am serious, if you guys don't have full reserves tomorrow the exercise will kill you, got it?" said Kushina with a little more force. Amy and Naruto looked back and saw the serious look on the women's face and knew instantly that whatever tomorrow held in store for them was going to be intense. The two then exited the dojo and headed to the main hall of the compound to eat and figure out how to kill the day, leaving Kushina and Tsukoshi in the dojo. "Tsukoshi, is Naruto still having problems summoning your kin?" asked Kushina. "Yes, I'm afraid so, with so much of his tenant's chakra flowing through him and my clan's incompatibility with the Biju," His chakra keeps getting masked by Fox's chakra and he can only summon me in eggs, which sucks because guess who has to explain to the mothers why their unborn keep disappearing on them? Replied Tsukoshi. Sorry for the trouble, I appreciate everything you've done. Said Kushina. Not a problem, we have been friends of your family for generations and your son shows nothing but respect to me and even makes sure the eggs are safe until I can return them. He'll make a fine summoner. Said Tsukoshi. Good, well I guess we need to get started then. Tsukoshi, I need you to set up the seals we discussed. Said Kushina. Tsukoshi eyes widened to an almost comical size. There had been only one set of seals that she could be talking about and he now grew very concerned. Are you sure he is ready for that? That's an ungodly amount of pressure you're putting him under. Said Tsukoshi. No worry, Amy is going to help. Responded Kushina. What are you kidding me? That girl won't have the self-esteem to face this. What makes you think she'll be able to help? Yelled Tsukoshi. Simple, she loves him and when he needs her she'll step up to the plate. Said Kushina. I'll give you that she and the boy have feelings for each other but they haven't even gotten to the flirting stages yet. Said Tsukoshi. Yeah, but I think a day with nothing to do and the events that will happen tomorrow. It will push them to where they need to be. Said Kushina. I see. You've had this all planned out, haven't you? That's the reason you've had her learn the twin dragons. Said Tsukoshi with a smirk. Those two were made for each other, I did nothing to push them, said Kushina. Tsukoshi only stared at Kushina accusingly, waiting for her to take back the statement. I didn't push them too hard. Nothing that gives you a reason to glare at me like that. Said Kushina, finally faltering under the small dragon's stare. Fine, I believe that, said Tsukoshi. Well, we need those seals set up by tomorrow, so let's get going. Said Kushina. Tsukoshi ran down the spiral staircase into the clan's jutsu vault and bought up brushes and ink along with other supplies to prepare for the day ahead. Off in the main hall of the compound, Naruto and Amy were just about done with their meals. The two usually talked up a storm during their lunch, talking about everything from jutsu to stories they've heard over the years, but today was silent. The two knew something big was going to happen, but they didn't know what. The two thought of everything they could to explain the serious tone of Kushina, but nothing seemed to fit. Well, what do we do now? I don't feel like being lazy and doing nothing for the rest of the day, and it's too early to hit the hot spring. Said Amy. Well, we could always wander around the village since you haven't seen it yet. Said Naruto. Yeah, some whirlpool ninja I am. I don't even know the layout of the village. She said, chuckling. And some Azukage I am. Other than some rummaging trips, I haven't seen very much of it either. Said Naruto. The two chuckled lightly at each other's self-lampooning and made their way out of the compound. As the two walked through the forest side by side, they wondered what should be seen first on their great whirlpool tour. What do you think we should see first, Naruto? Asked Amy. Well, how about the cage tower? Since you told me you wanted to be the head of security of the village, why don't we go see what you have to deal with? Said Naruto. Wow, show me the mind-numbing job I will be doing. What a great setup for a date. Said Amy sarcastically. A date? Said Naruto nervously. Sensing the nervousness from the boy next to her, Amy started blushing, realizing how awkward the joke made them both feel. I was joking, I would actually like to see how the villages keep secured since it will be my job. Said Amy. Yes, on a date that would be weird, wouldn't it? Said Naruto. Yeah, beside you can't have a girlfriend. You need to keep yourself open so when you save some princess as the Azukage you can marry her. Chuckled Amy. Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, I don't think they'll be half as fun to save as you were. Said Naruto with a smirk. The two chuckled as they entered the residential area of the village. The two continued inward, heading to the cage tower. They were both silent, and if any onlookers were present they would see the two teens snatching glances of each other. Neither probably had noticed the interaction between them, but they felt very comfortable around each other until anything involving them as an item was brought up. I wish he really thought of me like that, but every time it even gets remotely brought up he tries to act like it's a joke. Maybe he just doesn't feel that way and he is just trying to be nice. Thought Amy. Unknown to Amy, however, very similar ideas were going through the blonde's own mind. Despite the awkward moment, the rest of the day went very well. Once they made it to the cage tower, they found out how to move the whirlpools at the hubs and basic protocol when it came to border patrols. After that they saw all the various fountains and reflecting pools that dotted the landscape of the village. As the day came to a close, they walked up to the statues and admired the size and the power each one possessed. Night had finally came to the abandoned village, and with it the slightly chilly air that made it perfect for the hot spring. It created the steamy fog that was very useful for both the teens to sit and relax without having fear of seeing each other nude. The two sat on opposite sides of the spring once again, wondering what made Kushina act so serious. Amy submerged deeper into the spring but winced as her shoulder hit the water. She clasped her hand over the large gash that she had received a few days ago when she removed one of the whirlpool shrunk into quickly. She had hidden the wound with excessive bandages from both Naruto and Kushina, hoping that it would heal on its own. However, the wound had yet to close up, and telling anyone now would only make her a hindrance to them in her eyes. "Hey Amy?" asked Naruto. "Yes, Naruto," replied Amy, being brought out of her deep thinking. "You're being pretty quiet tonight, any reason?" asked Naruto. "Just thinking about tomorrow, that's all," said Amy. "Yeah, it sounds like tomorrow is going to be an intense session," said Naruto. "It sounds dangerous. I hope I can make it through," said Amy. "Don't you mean we make it through?" said Naruto. "You'll make it through no problem, but me?" said Amy. "Come on, I thought we got you away from that train of thought months ago." Naruto replied. "Yeah, but I still can't do the storm dance of the twin dragons. Then I learn only Uzumakis can do it, so I just feel like I wasted a lot of time," said Amy. "Don't worry, it takes a while to learn a jutsu. I started learning the Rasengan 2 months ago and I just got it down." Said Naruto. "Really, you finally got it down, but how come I didn't see it?" said Amy. "You were too busy with the storm dance of the twin dragons to notice. Tomorrow after the training I'll show you it and the first step to learning it," said Naruto. "Really, thank you," said Amy happily. "Well, it's getting late, we should get to bed," said Naruto. The two got out and started covering themselves with towels. As Naruto took another towel and started rub his hair with it, he heard Ami's footsteps walk away from him at a fast pace. The last few days Amy had been doing this. Naruto knew something was up because beforehand they had always walked to compound together. Determined to find out the change in behavior from his purple-haired companion, Naruto picked up his own pace and caught up to Amy, who was just about to make it into the compound. "Amy!" called Naruto. Amy froze with her back facing the boy. She knew that he would see the wound and yell at her for being weak, just like her last friends. "Amy, you're bleeding, what happened?" said Naruto as he got closer to the girl. "Nothing, just a training accident," said Amy weakly. "I see you pulled the whirlpool shrunken off your back holster too fast, didn't you?" said Naruto. Amy could only nod, her eyes looking at the ground as Naruto come closer to her to get a better look at the wound. "This is a pretty large gash, it will need some stitches." "How come you didn't tell me or mom about this?" said Naruto. "I didn't want to be a burden and make you think I was weak," said Amy as she stared at the ground, eyes watering, waiting for the backlash to come. Naruto walked calmly to stand in front of the girl and lifted her chin softly so he could look into her eyes. Earth brown meet ocean blue as Amy continued to tear up, thinking that another Kasumi and Nori incident was upon her. Naruto knew what the poor girl was thinking, so he placed his forehead softly on hers, causing both to slightly blush at the intimate contact. "Amy, I'm not Kasumi and Nori, and I never will be, alright? If you ever need help, even something as simple as a few amateur stitches, I'll help. I look after you just as you look after me. Wasn't that something you said the first night we walked down this path?" said Naruto softly, emitting comfort with the tone of his voice. "I said don't expect to save my ass again, in fact expect it the other way around," replied Amy. "They're the same thing in my book. Now let's go to the kitchen, there's a first aid center in the pantry area that has what we need," said Naruto. Naruto grabbed her hand and slowly led her to the kitchen and had her sit down in a chair at a small breakfast nook. He then rummaged through the pantry and found a medical needle and thread along with some alcohol to clean the wound. Naruto was by no means a medical expert, but with all the shadow clone training and studying he had learned to field dress wounds with stitches. He cleaned the area and soon needle was digging into flesh, closing up the gash. Unfortunately for Amy, even though Naruto knew how to perform a stitching, he did not know the subtle art to perform it without tugging at skin. "Ouch, that hurts," Amy winced. "I'm sorry, you're the first person that I've done this on while they're awake," said Naruto. "I can tell," said Amy. "I would have done it on myself, but my wounds never stay open," said Naruto. "Yeah, seems the damn fox is good for something," said Amy. After hearing the comment, Amy heard a sigh escape Naruto's lips. She knew that the fox was a sore subject, but she had made comments like that only to have Naruto agree with her. "What's wrong?" asked Amy. "Nothing, I just think that the fox has more cons than pros." Said Naruto. "Well, of course healing and resilient chakra is not worth what you had to go through, but that part of your life is over," said Amy. "It's not that," said Naruto. "Then what is?" asked Amy. "I think the fox is inhibiting me," said Naruto. "How?" replied Amy. "Have you noticed I can only summon Tsukoshi or eggs?" said Naruto. "Yeah, so what does that have anything to do with it?" said Amy. "Well, I got frustrated at one point and asked Tsukoshi about it and he said I need to have more chakra control," said Naruto. "How? You've got the Rasengan down and that is nothing but control, plus from what I've read the more chakra you pump into a summon the larger it should be. You almost need no control, just force," said Amy. "Yeah, but I have to put a large amount of control into just summoning Tsukoshi, and when I do I feel just my chakra, but every time I try to put a large amount I feel this chaotic energy that could only be the fox's cover my own, then I summon an egg," said Naruto. "You think it's because of the fox's chakra?" said Amy. "Yep," said Naruto. "Well, isn't that dandy? Life just likes to shit on you, doesn't it?" said Amy. "It's not all bad, I got mom and you," said Naruto. Amy was glad that Naruto was focused on her back because her face had a nice scarlet hue to it. "Alright, here is the final thread and knot," said Naruto as he finished the final stitch and tied it off. "Thank you," said Amy. "No prob, you cook pancakes tomorrow and we'll call it even, okay?" said Naruto. "I swear if it isn't ramen it's pancakes with you," said Amy. "No, I've had pancakes before and to tell you the truth I didn't like them, but whatever you do to yours puts them on a whole new level," said Naruto. "Oh please, the cook can't make that much of a difference," said Amy. "This coming from the girl who didn't like steak until she tried mine," said Naruto with a smirk. "Fine, you got me. Tomorrow for breakfast pancakes by me and lunch will be your steaks." "How does that sound?" said Amy. "Great," said Naruto. Amy and Naruto now done headed to their rooms and retired for the night, hoping that tomorrow would not be as bad as it sounded. Unknown to them, however, tomorrow would be the start to one of the most influential weeks in both their lives. The next morning Naruto was greeted to the smell of pancakes and had quickly starting to inhale the confections as soon as it hit his plate, with Amy still unsure where the pancakes were actually going. After a morning of light reading in the compound common area, the roles reversed. Amy munching Naruto's grilled steak while Naruto gawked at the sight, wondering how the petite girl avoided stomach rupture, let alone showing no signs of stomach expansion. After finishing the meal, the two made their way to the dojo. As they approached the entrances, they saw something that made their eyebrows shoot up in surprise. There, hanging on the closed door, were two outfits. Dark navy ninja pants that were reinforced with Kevlar and pockets built in that eliminated the need for shrunken and kunai holsters. Two dark green muscle t-shirts, one male one female. On the right sleeve the white uzu swirl with its string and bead hanging beneath it. Two dark teal flak jackets with pockets meant for scrolls, exploding tags, and smoke bombs on the front and on the back written in dark red, the kanji for uzu. And finally two open front trench coats in a slight darker shade of teal from the flak jackets. On the back of them the Uzumaki clan symbol of the two dragons coming from the top and bottom and meeting in the middle in a swirling pattern. Clipped to one outfit was a note that Naruto promptly unclipped. "Dear Amy and Naruto, today will be a full battle gear training session, so we have provided you with full whirlpool Jonin ninja outfits that members of our clan wear. They are fully stocked with shrunken and kunai. Once you place these on, consider yourself Jonin of the hidden whirlpool village. Now get dressed and get ready for an intense day. Sincerely, Kushina and Tsukoshi." Naruto read out loud. "Consider us Jonin, isn't your mother overestimating us? And what makes her think I should wear your clan's emblem?" said Amy with a little bit of uncertainty. "Who knows, it's my mother, let's get dressed and get going," said Naruto. The two gave each other a little privacy as they geared up. The two were surprised by the comfort that the outfits gave compared to the tattered clothes that had been their training outfits. Their old clothes had often limited their movement, but even adding on the trench coats that hung down to the middle of their calves, they felt as if the clothes moved with them and not against them. As Amy strapped the two whirlpools shrunk into back, she noticed that there were no hiteites to put on. Hey Naruto, how come we don't have Hite Ite? We're apparently Jonin now, so why don't we have Hite Ite, said Amy. We are wearing our Hittites, Amy, answered Naruto. Where? Said Amy. Naruto showed her his right shoulder and pointed to the white swirl on his sleeve. Whirlpool ninja don't wear the traditional Hite Ite. Apparently they thought a shimmering piece of metal made it too easy for someone to spot, so instead they wore this. They called it the Whirlpool War Emblem, said Naruto. Amy caressed the symbol on her sleeve and gave a million-watt smile. It was now official, she was a shinobi and was ready to prove that she had earned the war emblem she now wore. Cool, so let's head in and get this thing over with, said Amy proudly. Naruto nodded in agreement and the two entered the dojo. They were then greeted by a sight of elaborate seals placed all over the dojo floor. Towards the center right in front of the pendant sat two meditation mats, both with seals of swirls and kanji heavily placed on them. On the pendant itself sat Tsukoshi and Kushina looking attentively at the two teens. Alright, you two come here and sit on the mats in a meditative position. Naruto, you sit on the right, and Amy, you sit on the left, said Kushina. The two sat down upon the mats wondering what was going on. Now Tsukoshi, said Kushina. The tiny water dragon flew through some hand seals and suddenly Naruto and Amy found themselves unable to move. After a few moments of struggling with no results, the two finally calmed down. What's going on, why can't we move? Said Naruto. Because today you two are going to face something that's on the level of the devil himself, and I need to explain everything, so I need you two to listen and not back out of this, said Kushina. The two teens went wide-eyed. For her to go to such extremes to just keep them there and prevent them from running off told the two that whatever they were doing was on a totally different level than they imagined. Now you two may not know it, but you are a level now that most regular jonin and maybe even the elites would kill for. Amy, you may not feel like it, but if you were back in Konoha with this strength, there would be few if any that could take you on. And Naruto, you are just one step away from being able to perform the statue sealing. And after today you two will either be ready or you will be dead. One of the two, said Kushina. What, how come the last step is so dangerous? What's so different now that will be changed by tomorrow? Yelled Naruto. The statue sealing has one stipulation, and it is that the chakra put into it must be completely human. If you say, put in the chakra of a biju, it would conflict with the chakra of the other statues and cause a collapse of the very whirlpool above, drowning the entire village. So today you two are going to do something not even the fourth Hokage could do. Kill the Kyuubi, said Kushina. All color that was present on Naruto and Amy faded till it was sheet white. The two desperately tried to read Kushina's face to see if she was just joking with them, but the stone-cold serious face gave no hope to the teens. Don't worry, if I didn't think you two were up for this I wouldn't be doing it. Now the way we are going to do this is simple, at least when I explain it. The seals beneath you serve two purposes. The first is they will draw 98% of your chakra, the most, before it kills you, into Naruto's mindscape where the Kyuubi resides. There you two are going to fight and hopefully kill the demon. The second thing the seal does is, while doing this, demonic chakra is going to be leaking out of Naruto profusely, and the seals will aid the stone in neutralizing the demonic chakra and also help it dissipate it as if it was regular chakra. Now before we begin, any questions? Said Kushina. Are you crazy? We can't do this, yelled Amy. Calm down, as I said before, if you two weren't capable of doing this I wouldn't put you through it. So let's get started and get through this and celebrate the demise of one of the most destructive and dangerous forces ever to walk this earth. Tsukoshi, get started, said Kushina. Before the teens could retort, Tsukoshi slammed a claw on the ground, causing all of the seals to illuminate and causing both teens' eyes to close shut as chakra from Amy started to become visible and made its way towards Naruto's body. I still think you were a little rash about this, said Tsukoshi. Come on, at least I didn't push them off a cliff or something. Besides, Minato only sealed half of the Kyuubi's chakra into Naruto while the Shinigami got the other half. 2 A-ranked shinobi can handle that, said Kushina. You think they're that high of a caliber, said Tsukoshi. I don't think it, I know it, and if what I think is going to happen after this occurs, their chakra reserves are going to push S-ranked, said Kushina. The dragon and the aberration now grew silent and stared at the two teens, waiting for the results of the battle that would soon be raged in Naruto's mind. Naruto and Amy, after a short spell of unconsciousness, were woken by a large tremor. The two sat up to find that they were laying in a sheet of water 1 inch deep in what looked like a sewer. "Is this your mindscape?" said Amy. "I guess so, although I would have thought it would have been more festive, you know, like I am," said Naruto with a foxy smirk. "Would you quit making jokes? We need to get out of here. I don't know what your mom was smoking, but there is no way we'll be able to take on the Kyuubi," said Amy, fear evident in her voice. "Well, how do we get out?" said Naruto. "I don't know, it's your mind," replied Amy. Suddenly another tremor shook the tunnel, violently caused pipes to break, shooting steam in all directions. Deciding that it would be better to move than wait for the degraded tunnel to collapse, Naruto and Amy ran down one of the corridors in an attempt to get out and hoping to avoid the Kyuubi. After a few more tremors that grew in length and strength, the pair soon saw what appeared to be sunlight and made a beeline for it. As they came closer, they saw a large stairway that led to the surface. The two slowly made their way up the grand stairway. As they shielded their eyes to allow them to adjust to the light, they saw that the surface was nothing but a barren wasteland. No rocks, withered trees, large crevasses, nothing that gave the land any true definition. Only cracked barren earth under a crimson-red sky. The two walked into the wasteland with hopes of finding something that could help them. "Well, that was a bust. Nothing's here," said Naruto. "At least nothing can sneak up on us," said Amy. As soon as Amy had muttered those words, a tremor with strength that put the previous ones to shame occurred. Accompanying the quake, large gashes appeared, splitting the two teens apart. As Amy tried to make to the same side of the gash, Naruto watched in horror as the ground fell out from beneath her. Then, unfortunately for the blonde, as Amy fell into the hole, the cause of it was shooting out. Crimson fur, claws and teeth bearing in front of crimson eyes. "Don't worry about your puny mate, monkey. As soon as I am done devouring you, I make sure you have reunion with her," said the monstrosity, his teeth curled in a sinister grin. "Shut up, you goddamn fox," said Naruto. Before the boy could retort any further, one of the massive paws of the fox shot towards him, forcing him away from the hole. After the escape from the attack, Naruto tried to make his way to the hole to help his purple-haired friend, only to be cut off by the fox. "Like I said before, you pathetic little monkey, kill you first, then your mate," said the Kyuubi. One of the massive tails whipped its way toward Naruto, forcing him back away from the hole. "I can't get to Amy. I guess I just got to hope she's okay. I would never forgive myself if she died," thought Naruto. Naruto locked eyes with the fox. He knew that if he was to help Amy, he had to go through the fox. Unfortunately, he had no idea how to fight the thing. Pulling out two small shrunken with elaborate seals on them, he threw them to each of his side, and a few hand signs later, two dragons, one of wind and water, shot out. "Storm dance of the twin dragons," yelled Naruto as he teleported to the space in between the heads, speeding towards the demon fox. Amy continued to fall into the darkness. Then, without any warning, she splashed into a large body of water. However, she was unable to float or swim in the water, and was now being pulled by some unseen force into the dark depths. As she sunk deeper, she calmed down and realized where she was. She was literally floating around in Naruto's memories. She also felt every emotion and heard every thought that came with them, and she was not liking it. "Get away from my children, you little monster," one villager said. "Look at that trash, how can we still let that thing live?" said another. "Loser, you're nothing but a failure," said some academy students. "Stop it, please. Someone make it stop," thought Amy, only to have the thoughts of Naruto bombard her mind. "Why do they hate me? I wish I wasn't so alone. I wish I knew why they hate me. Please someone pay attention to me," said a voice of a young Naruto. The thoughts of the blonde brought tears to the young girl's eyes, now wishing she could escape this nightmare. "How does he live with all of this? I know I couldn't handle this," thought Amy to herself. Then flashes of Naruto meeting Kushina flooded her mind, slowly easing the pain Amy was feeling. "I have a mother and she loves me. I will live up to her and dad. I'll make them proud," were the thoughts of the blonde. Even though the sadness had subsided, although it still had a significant presence. Then came a memory, a very fresh one, not even 24 hours old. Amy and Naruto walking down the roads towards the Azukage Tower, each stealing glances at each other. "I wish she felt the same way I do, but how could she love something like me?" Naruto's thoughts said. Then came a flood of memories of Amy and Naruto training, eating, cooking, sitting in the hot springs, joking, and finally came the memories of last night. As Naruto placed his forehead against hers, telling how they would watch each other's back. I know that you will never love me, but as long as you're watching my back I'll be happy, Naruto thought. Ami's eyes shot open, ignoring the emotions that still flooded her mind. She kicked with all her might upwards, determined to make it to the surface. Tears not of sadness but of joy leaking into the waters around her. You're wrong, Naruto, I do love you, and it's about time I prove it and make good on my promise to be the one that saves you, thought Ami. With that thought she broke the surface of the water, trying her hardest not to be forced back down into the depths. As she got her bearings she saw a light off in the distance. She propelled herself towards it, hoping it was an exit. When she got closer to the light she saw that in front of it were giant bars and behind them the sewers that they had started in. This must have been where the Kyuubi was sealed before Kushina-sensei messed with the seal, said Ami. She squeezed through the bars and was glad that the water on the other side was the 1-inch depth of the other areas of the sewers. She quickly caught her breath and ran into the maze of sewer lines in hope of finding the exit before it was too late. Please hold on, Naruto, I'll be there as soon as I can, thought Ami, quickly turning the corner and running, hoping to find the way to the surface. On the surface Naruto was dodging strikes for the fox's tails and paws left and right. The wasteland no longer flat but full of craters. Naruto backpedaled away from the beast, trying to figure out what to do next. The storm dance of the twin dragons he quickly learned only gave him one close-range teleportation before the fox would slash the dragons, ending the jutsu. He learned very quickly that close range was ineffective with the beast. Then every long-range attack he tried came with similar results. With 3/4 of his chakra depleted and each attack of the fox getting closer and closer, he was quickly running out of options. To the horror of the blonde, another paw came sweeping in, missing him by mere inches. The backlash of rumble of the paw hitting the ground causing Naruto to be flung across the wasteland. God damn it, screamed the blonde. Before the blonde could rebound from the strike, the fox threw another slash in attempt to finally finish off his jailer. His evil smirk grew as he would finally be rid of the young shinobi and free to roam the world once again. Enjoy death, you little monkey, yelled the Kyuubi. The massive fox paw proceeded downward towards Naruto. The Kyuubi laughing, enjoying every moment of pain that was to come to his former jailer. Naruto could only watch and accept the fate that had been given to him. Looks like my dreams in life end here. I just hope Ami can get out of here, thought Naruto. Naruto closed his eyes and waited for death to embrace him. As the fox's paw grew closer and closer to the blonde, a whizzing sound emanated, followed by the sound of something embedding into flesh. How dare you try to kill someone I love, you goddamn fox, yelled a feminine voice. After the comment, a yelp and angry roar came from the fox, who was clearly in pain. Naruto shot his eyes open to find Ami standing in front of him and a small distance away the Kyuubi trying desperately to scratch off a whirlpool shrunken that was now embedded in his eye. Ami, said Naruto. You miss me, said Ami in a sing-sung voice. Naruto rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't dreaming. Here he was being saved by Ami just like she promised. Not only that, but he could have sworn he heard her say she loved him. Deciding to put those thoughts on temporary hold, he looked at the fox, who still was trying to remove the shrunken. This confused him more. He had asked his mother on what the battle with the Kyuubi was like. Although Kushina hadn't been on the front lines, she did tell him that any type of kunai and shrunken would simply bounce off the monster even if it hit something like the eye. So why did Ami's shrunken cause damage? Naruto quickly searched any info in his mind that would answer. Then he remembered what his mother said. The seal would create 2 chakra beings that would be fighting the fox. It all made sense now why they were asked to be in full battle gear, why 98% of the chakra was being put into the mindscape. Kushina wanted them to go in an all-out attack and use their combined chakra to literally decimate the beast. Naruto put on a foxy grin and looked at his purple-haired partner. Ami, I got an idea, said Naruto. Well, spill the beans, the fox will probably get that shrunken out soon, said Ami. I want to put all the chakra we both have into one badass attack, namely the Rasengan, Naruto replied. Naruto then explained what he figured out to Ami, and soon Ami's grin reflected Naruto's. The two then came closer and started channeling chakra into Naruto's palm. The seed of a Rasengan forming and slowly growing. Alright Ami, I want you to put everything you got into the Rasengan, I'll do the rest, okay? Said Naruto. Ami nodded and started to focus everything onto Naruto's palm. As the flow of Ami's chakra made itself known, Naruto started to think about the comment that Amy had made earlier. He decided that the question on his mind couldn't wait any longer. "Amy, is what you said earlier about loving me true?" said Naruto softly with hopeful eyes. Ami's eyes looked up and the earth-brown and ocean-blue eyes once again met. Amy took her unused hand and placed it on the back of Naruto's head and pulled his face to hers. She quickly placed her lips onto Naruto's in a sloppy kiss. Naruto, slightly surprised, nearly lost control of the Rasengan but held on and soon wrapped his own unused arm around the small of Ami's back and pulled her towards him, only having the Rasengan separating them from a full embrace. Amy reluctantly broke the kiss but kept her forehead placed on Naruto's. "Does that answer your question?" whispered Amy seductively. Naruto merely nodded dumbly, still struck by the affection he was receiving. Ami's body started to glow a deep blue, meaning that all her chakra was about to manifest into the Rasengan. "Go get him, tiger," Amy whispered. And with those last words of Amy being said, an explosion of her chakra came into play as it began to form a Rasengan of mammoth proportions. Naruto, now alone on the battlefield, raised swirling mass of chakra above his head, continuing to give it as much chakra as he could, leaving only enough to move. Seeing the Kyuubi was still messing with his eye gave Naruto the opening he needed to vanquish the monster. "I'll have to thank Amy for getting the shrunken embedded so deep that he can't get it out," thought Naruto. Naruto used the remaining chakra he had to jump as high as he could. He flew through the air with great height with the Rasengan now the size of the fox itself above him. He then pulled the massive ball of chakra beneath him and started his descent. As he did, the fox finally got the shrunken out of his eye. He then started to look around to find the two that had caused him pain. Hearing the sound of a strong wind above him, he looked up and gave a look of horror, probably for the first time in his existence, as the Rasengan came down upon him. "What the hell is this, you little monkey?" yelled the beast. "This is what happens when you mess with the future Azukage of the village hidden in the whirlpool, and don't you forget it," yelled back Naruto. The Rasengan met the flesh of the Kyuubi and dug into the demon fox. One more roar of pain from the fox was the last sound anyone would hear of the fox as the Rasengan devoured the beast. As the fox was blown out of existence, a giant shockwave of its chakra rang out from the attack. In the world outside of Naruto mindscape, Tsukoshi and Kushina looked as a large amount of the fox's tainted chakra blew out of Naruto. The last remnants of the chakra soon wrapped itself around Naruto and Amy, causing both to thrash violently even in their unconscious state. "Good thing you had me place those chakra filtration seal on those mats," said Tsukoshi. "I had a feeling that the Kyuubi wouldn't go quietly, so I turned the problem into a perk. With all that chakra now safely going through them, their chakra coils will expand, giving them even higher chakra capacities," said Kushina in a matter-of-fact tone. "So that's why you said they could be S-ranked shinobi after this," said Tsukoshi. "Yep, and guess who was right about them killing the Kyuubi? It's a shame I didn't bet on them, I would have won," said Kushina. "Like I would bet against you. Every Uzumaki I've ever met has more luck than a rabbit's foot, lucky horseshoe and a four-leaf clover combined," said Tsukoshi. Kushina chuckled at her friend's comment and looked down on the two shinobi at her feet. Pride was clearly written on her face as she looked at the two. "You're very lucky you two have each other, because you two are going to need each other very soon," thought Kushina. She looked over to Tsukoshi, who now was checking Amy and Naruto to see how they were doing. He felt over both of their stomachs, trying to feel their chakra, and his eyes widened in surprise. "Kushina, their coils have at least doubled in size," said Tsukoshi. "Good. Do you think you could move them to a more comfortable place like the couches in the living room?" said Kushina. "Yeah, but it will require dragging them," said Tsukoshi. "That's fine, move them and me there. When they wake up, I'll have Naruto perform the statue summoning and both of them perform the Uzumaki Engumi seal," said Kushina. Tsukoshi merely nodded and grabbed one of the young shinobi and started to softly drag them to the living room for some well-deserved rest. Rest that would be needed for the days to come. In the center hall of the Uzumaki estate, on a large couch, an unconscious Naruto and Amy slept. Amy had her back to Naruto's chest and Naruto had his arms wrapped around the purple-haired girl's waist while their legs intertwined each other. As they slept, Kushina looked upon the two from her crystal with a content smile. The two had laid in that position ever since Tsukoshi had dragged them out of the dojo 3 days ago, and Kushina just thought the two looked so natural in their shared slumber. Soon Amy started to stir and lazily open her eyes. Her stirring had also woken Naruto, who also groggily opened his eyes. The two noticed their intimate position, but neither seemed to be bothered by it. As Amy turned her head around, she met Naruto's gaze. The two silently took in each other's looks. Neither showed blush or any signs of awkwardness. They just smiled at each other, unaware of anything around them. Kushina looked upon the two with happy eyes. She had seen this coming for months now and was glad the relationship had reached maturity. "Good to see that you two are awake. You've been asleep for 3 days," said Kushina. Immediately the two teens quickly tried to sit up quickly to avoid any jokes and teasing that the ghostly redhead would most likely be unleashing on them. Unfortunately, with the intimate position they were in caused them to tumble to the ground. The two struggled a bit to get untangled, and after achieving the task they both shot up and stood at attention in front of the redhead. Both knew that Kushina was going to mercilessly poke fun at them and it would be non-stop embarrassment. "Naruto, could you go make a small batch of ramen for breakfast?" said Kushina with a motherly smile. This comment caught the two off guard. Where was the smirk of mischievousness that she wore when she was planning something? Where was the giggle she would emit when she was about to say something to embarrass them? Naruto eyed her warily and gave a small nod. "Alright, come on Amy, you can help me," said Naruto. "I think you can handle instant ramen on your own, Naruto. Amy can stay back so I have someone to talk to while you make breakfast," replied Kushina. Amy's eyes widened in horror. Kushina must be planning on getting them individually, and she was her first target. She looked at Naruto, her gaze pleading him not to leave her alone to take the brunt of Kushina's teasing by herself. Now don't worry Amy, I'm not going to bite, so Naruto shoo, leave us girls to our talk," said Kushina, said in tone that screamed mother hen. Naruto, deciding that he couldn't do anything for Amy, slowly made his way to the kitchen, leaving the two ladies to their girl talk. As Naruto escaped from view into the kitchen, Amy squirmed uncomfortably in front of Kushina. "Quit squirming and sit down Amy, we have a lot to discuss," Kushina said in soothing tone. Kushina's words surprisingly calmed down the young girl and she took a sit. She stared at the redhead whose look perplexed her. It was a proud and hopeful look, but it also had much sadness to it. She had never seen Kushina look like this. The whole time Amy knew this woman, her face always held pride and confidence or mischievousness. So the expression Kushina had was totally alien to Amy. "You love him, don't you?" said Kushina, breaking the silence. "What are you talking about? We didn't end up on the couch together because we," said Amy. "Amy, don't hide it, it's okay to tell me your feelings. Now tell me, what does your heart tell you about Naruto?" interrupted Kushina. "Well, it's just that he's strong and caring. He's the only one that has saved my life when I was in trouble, and he asked nothing in return. He's too good for me," said Amy. "Amy, quit second-guessing yourself. I asked a simple yes or no question. Do you love him?" replied Kushina. "Yes," meekly answered Amy. "I didn't hear that, Amy. Don't hide your feelings, let them out," Kushina said. "Fine, I do, happy," retorted Amy forcefully. "Is that love strong enough to spend the rest of your life with him?" asked Kushina. "Huh, what are you implying?" Amy responded. "What I'm asking is, do you love him enough to forever claim him as yours?" said Kushina. "Like a husband?" asked Amy. "Yep, would you like to have a last name of Uzumaki, Amy?" said Kushina. "Why would he marry me? He's going to be a cage soon. He'll have princesses at his door begging to be his wife," ranted Amy. Her rant was quickly interrupted by Tan wrapping around her shoulders and pulling her back softly into an embrace. It seemed that Naruto had brought out the ramen only to hear the ranting of the purple-haired girl. She looked up, caught off guard by the sudden human contact. Her eyes saw the face of Naruto, who looked at her with a gaze that emanated warmth and comfort. "Amy, would any of those princesses fight alongside me against something like the Kyuubi? Would any of those princesses truly know what it is like to be ignored and hated? Would any of those princesses be able to keep me in line with a single glare like you?" said Naruto. Tears started to pour from Ami's eyes. She felt like an idiot. Even with the events of the battle with the Kyuubi, she just couldn't believe it happened. But with Naruto's arms around her, those fears were put to bed. She turned and wrapped her arms around Naruto's stomach and pulled herself up into a full embrace with him. her tears of joy dampening his outfit. "I guess when we get a bit older we'll be taking our vows," said Amy. "Actually it's kind of a now or never type of thing," interrupted Kushina. "What?" Amy and Naruto yelled. Naruto were tackling the statue summoning today and the conditions to perform the Uzumaki wedding ceremony that would make Amy a true part of Uzumaki clan will only be around for a short period today. "So what is the answer, you two? Will Amy be your wife and part of the clan, or will she be lifelong mistress?" "The answer is up to you two," said Kushina. "How come the conditions will only be for today?" asked Naruto. "You'll find out later. How about this, I'll give you some privacy to discuss it over breakfast," said Kushina, who promptly receded back into the crystal. "Great, more questions than answers. I guess we won't get married, at least like Uzumakis do." "I don't want to force this on," said Naruto. "I want to do it," interrupted Amy. "What?" "Amy, listen, I don't want you to feel obligated into doing this," said Naruto. "Naruto, you know when I fell into the hole when we were fighting the Kyuubi," said Amy. Naruto nodded, remembering the fear of losing the girl when that happened. "Well, when I finally reached the bottom I kind of fell into your memories. I felt everything, your childhood, the betrayal of your sensei and the self-sacrifice of another. I felt every cold stare and every insult. But I also felt and saw what you think of me. And let me tell you something, the feeling in mutual right down to the disbelief that the other shares the same feelings. Naruto, when I said I loved you I meant it," said Amy. "Are you sure we can always live together and love each other without the wedding ceremony?" said Naruto. "I think getting married to a man that is too good for me is a pretty good deal, don't you think?" replied Amy. "I think you're confused, you're the one that too good for me," said Naruto. "Why don't we just agree that we're both too good for the other?" Amy replied with a smirk. "I can agree with that." "Well, are you ready to become Amy Uzumaki?" said Naruto with a soft smile. "Quite ready," said Amy, her face beaming with happiness. The two proceeded to the crystal to inform their decision to Kushina. They tapped on the stone, which illuminated as Kushina phased back to the room. "Well, is Amy going to be my daughter-in-law?" chimed Kushina. Both nodded and slightly blushed, still a little nervous that they were taking the plunge. "Good, get some seal ink and a seal brush. Then pick me up and take me to the courtyard next to the hot spring. That is the site where all Uzumakis get married," said Kushina. Naruto headed to the underground archives to pick up the ink and brushes while Amy took Kushina to the courtyard. Kushina told her to place her under a small pavilion that sat adjacent to the hot spring. In the structure were two columns that stood about a foot high and a few inches apart. Kushina instructed Amy to sit cross-legged on one and wait for Naruto. A few minutes later Naruto appeared with the ink and brush, placing them in front of Kushina, who promptly told Naruto to sit on the other column facing Amy. The two were soon in position waiting for the next step. "Alright, you two remove your shirts and in Ami's case bra. The ceremony requires that you both be topless for this," commanded Kushina. Both teens gave her a look that screamed, "What the hell?" After Kushina's own commanding glare, however, both teens decided that there was no room for argument and started removing clothing. The deed was soon done and both looked at each other. Amy, who was accustomed to seeing Naruto's torso, looked at his face and blushed as her soon-to-be husband got his first look at her naked chest. His breasts were about a B-cup and most likely still growing in size, but she was still a little self-conscious under the blonde's gawking stare. "Oh God, I've seen that look before. You're a tit man just like your father. Well, Amy, be prepared to be motorboated multiple times over the course of your marriage," said Kushina nonchalantly. Both teens looked apprehensively at the women who had just shown that she still spoke her mind whether it was appropriate or not. "So now what?" said Amy, still recovering from the women's comment. "I get the ceremony started," said Kushina. Kushina went through some hand signs, causing both teens to look in confusion at the actions. Kushina finished her hand signs and started to glow. Then suddenly her translucent form took a more solid state and she dropped to the ground, landing on her feet. Both teens froze as Kushina walked over away from the crystal to Naruto and gave him a hug. "I've waited a long time to do that," said Kushina happily. "What? But how? You're solid, what's going on?" said a confused Naruto. "All will be explained in time, son, let's just get the wedding ceremony and statue summoning done first, okay?" replied Kushina as she let go of the embrace she had on Naruto. Kushina went and picked up the ink and brush, dipping the brush head into the ink. Alright, I'll be placing what is called the Uzumaki Engumi seal over your hearts. I will put some of my chakra into them, thus giving my blessing to the union. Then you two will place your hand over each other's seals and simultaneously pump a small amount into the seals. You'll feel the other chakra in that seal for the rest of your lives. After the chakra is exchanged, Amy will sign the Storm Dragon contract, making her an Uzumaki. Explained Kushina. Kushina took the brush and started to draw out the seals on the teen's chest. The pattern was what looked like half circle of a whirlpool, and on the top was their names: Uzumaki Naruto on the top of Naruto's seal and Amy Uzumaki on the top of Ami's. Kushina then placed her hands over both of the teen's seals and pumped a small amount of chakra into them. The seals suddenly lit up in a neon crimson red. Alright, you two now place your hands on your partner's seal and pump a small amount of chakra into each other. Commanded Kushina. Amy and Naruto reached out and placed their palms over each other's seal. Both blushed as they let out a small moan as the chakra made its way into each other. The seals reacted to the foreign chakra as they went from crimson red to a shade of green. The seals started to expand, creating a full circle whirlpool pattern. Under the spiral pattern, another name appeared. Amy Uzumaki under Naruto's seal and Naruto Uzumaki under Ami's. The seals' glow died down to where they looked like green tattoos. The result was both immediately felt the other's chakra in the seal, which gave a comforting aura to them. "It feels good, doesn't it?" said Kushina. Both nodded, not even looking at Kushina as they just stared at each other. Kushina went through the hand signs and summoned Tsukoshi in a puff of smoke. "Lady Kushina, what's going on?" said Tsukoshi, a little surprised that he had been summoned by the redhead. "Well, it seems we have a new Uzumaki that needs to sign the contract," answered Kushina. Tsukoshi turned around and saw Naruto and Amy still looking at each other, lost in each other's gaze. Tsukoshi then noticed the seals on the two's chest and smiled. He then opened his mouth and brought out a large scroll from his gut. He unraveled it to reveal many names, all of which shared the last name. "Amy, it's time you signed the scroll and joined the Uzumaki clan. Just prick your fingers, sign your name in blood and leave a handprint under it," said Tsukoshi in formal tone. Amy looked over at the scroll and smiled. She bit her thumb and started to write her name. "Here we are, Amy Uzumaki. I guess I can't call you Water Lizard anymore, Tsukoshi," said Amy. "You can still call me that. I like bickering with you, but defiantly don't call my kin that. They won't take joke very well, okay?" replied Tsukoshi. The two shared a chuckle as Tsukoshi rolled up the scroll and swallowed it for safekeeping. With the ceremony done, Naruto and Amy started to put their shirts back on. While they did that, Kushina looked on with pride. Her son had just found someone to love him and cherish him for the rest of his days. Tear of joys fell from her eyes as the teens got dressed. She soon wiped them away and put on a face that was all business. There was still things to do before day's end, and they needed to be done quickly. "Good, now that it is done, follow me to the statue site and then we'll make Naruto an Azukage," said Kushina. "We can wait for that, Mom. Why don't we celebrate?" "There's always tomorrow," said Naruto. "Nope, we do it now. Then we'll celebrate," said Kushina. "Why is it so important to do it now?" said Amy. "You'll see when we're done," responded Kushina. Kushina was soon off with Amy, Naruto, and Tsukoshi in hot pursuit. They soon came to a clearing next to the outer moat and a blank cliff face. Kushina turned to the three and entered lecture mode. "Alright, this spot is perpendicular to the other three statues. Once this is done, the whirlpool will be complete and it will become impenetrable. Tsukoshi, do you have the blood I asked you to collect?" said Kushina. Tsukoshi nodded and started to regurgitate another scroll. This one was just a small sealing scroll that would have been used to seal weapons or other objects. Tsukoshi pumped some chakra into the seal and soon bags of blood came into existence. "Mom, where did you get all this blood?" asked Naruto. "Every night since you learned to summon Tsukoshi. I've had him take a pint of blood from you in your sleep. It is needed to create a self-sustaining chakra system of the statue. Without it, the stone would merely absorb your chakra and dissipate it into the air like the dojo does." "Alright, stand back, I'll do the first step and get it ready for you," explained Kushina as Naruto gawked at the fact that over the last few months Tsukoshi had in essence been stealing his blood. Kushina took a brush and ink and then water walked across the moat to the cliff face. She proceeded to forge a very complex seal full of various kanji and swirls. She placed her palm on the new forged seal and pumped chakra into it and jumped back. The cliff face lit up and a square column of stone shot horizontally out of the cliffside, obviously meant to be the arm of the future statue. A large square block of the cliff then extended itself across the moat till it made landfall on the inner island. With the movement of the massive chunk of stone ended, a black pattern that resembled a human chakra system appeared on the stone slab. The two teens looked in awe at the massive block of stone. They then turned their attention to Kushina, who now had created a massive amount of clones who each grabbed a pint of blood and started to cover the black lines on the block. Alright, after the clones place blood on the seal, Naruto will pump as much chakra as he can until the seal creates a statue. It will be in your likeness and will shoot water to the middle of the sky, converging with the other streams of the whirlpool," explained Kushina. The redhead walked up to Naruto and gingerly nudged him towards the block of stone. Naruto looked up to see the progress of the clones. Soon one by one the clones disappearing in a puff of smoke until every seal was covered in Naruto's blood. Naruto placed his hand and with all his might pumped as much chakra as he could into the seal. The seals started to glow and hum. Naruto's forehead drenched in sweat and he continued to pump more chakra into the statue, waiting for the seal to take full effect. The hum of the seals soon became a wail and the ground started to shake, sliding. Suddenly, an unseen force pushed Naruto back violently. Amy ran up and caught the obviously exhausted blonde, who was now breathing very heavily. The tremors grew a little stronger. Suddenly a slurry of rock and water came bursting from the tip of column, making its way to the center of the sky, colliding with the other streams. Naruto and Amy looked at the sight in awe. They then looked at the bottom of the large slab to find it dissolving into a sand-like substance. Soon the bottom of the slab became an archway base as the sand-like substance got sucked in a seal that was underneath the archway platform. The whole block started to melt and sag into the same substance and followed the same path into the seal and shooting out of the horizontal column and disappearing into the whirlpool epicenter. Slowly a figure started to appear in the stone. First the sandaled feet and ankles, up to the cloaked torso and arm hanging to the side. Then the extending arm with its palm facing out towards the center of the whirlpool took shape. Finally the head and face came into view as the last of the sand-like substance crept its way down into the seal and shooting out of the palm. When the last of the sand made its way through the seal, water from the moat followed and soon nothing but pure water was making its way to the center of the sky, finishing the statue and strengthening the whirlpool that protected the village. "Wow, it looks just like you, Naruto," said an astounded Amy. "Yeah, I know. What do you think, Mom?" said Naruto, still gawking at the spectacle he just created. "I couldn't be more proud to call you my son," said a very weak and tired voice. Both Amy and Naruto quickly turned around, not used to hearing such a fragile tone from Kushina. They both turned around and their blood ran cold at the sight in front of them. Kushina sat leaning up against a tree at the edge of the clearing. Bags were under her eyes, which had sunk further back into her skull. The eyes were bloodshot to the point that no white could be seen. Her bright teal iris were now dull and lifeless. Her healthy face now had bony cheeks. Her once fierce red mane of hair now looked limp and dull, missing the shine and unruliness it once had. She no longer looked like the cage that could go toe-to-toe with the fourth Hokage. She looked frail and sick, as if she could die that instant. Amy, still supporting Naruto, quickly helped him over to the sickly women. "Mom, what happened?" yelled Naruto, his voice full of concern and fear. "Come closer and let me hug you too," said Kushina weakly. Both complied and let the redhead embrace them both as tears fell from the redhead's eyes. "I'm sorry, but I won't be able to celebrate your achievements today," she whispered meekly. "What?" said the two teens. "Naruto, when I became a solid entity, it accelerated the decay on the spiritual fingerprint I created. Once I use up all my chakra, I will die. With setting up the statue for you, I used a lot of my chakra and further accelerate the decay," said Kushina. "What? Why didn't you tell us? We would have never agreed to this," Amy and Naruto yelled. "Precisely why I didn't tell you, Naruto. Even if I had stayed in the crystal, I would have ended like this within the next year or so, and you wouldn't have had what you needed to become a husband to Amy or create the statue. It's time for you to stand on your own, Naruto, and rebuild the whirlpool," said Kushina. It's not fair what you're doing to him, Kushina-sensei. He would never have wanted this, yelled Amy. Kushina merely looked at her new daughter-in-law and smiled a soft, proud smile. Glad that Amy cared so much for her son. Amy, could you please call me mother? It would make me so happy to hear my daughter-in-law call me that, said Kushina softly. But Kushina, said Amy, tears now falling freely from her eyes. Please, I would love to hear it just once, said Kushina. Mother, it's not fair. Who's going to teach us now? Who's going to give us advice now? Who's going to be my mother? Sobbed Naruto, whose face was now plowed into Kushina's shoulder. You don't need a mother anymore, Naruto. It's my time to go. I want to see your father again, said Kushina. Both teens felt the guts twist every moment the signs of her physical strength continued to deteriorate. They felt her chakra was getting weaker and weaker with every passing second, causing more tears to fall. Kushina looked into the eyes of her new daughter-in-law. Amy, be his strength. I know he is going to hurting for a while and he is going to need you, said Kushina. Of course, I mean Mom, choked out Amy, her eyes bloodshot from crying. I'm glad you called Mom, it makes me happy to finally have a daughter. Too bad we can't have any girl talks and poke fun at Naruto's expense, said Kushina. I would have loved that, Mom, sniffed Amy, on the verge on a full-out bawl. She turned to Naruto, who was still crying, into his mother's shoulder. She pushed up Naruto's head and kissed his forehead, causing Naruto to stare right into his mother's eyes. Kushina let out a few tears fall as she saw the pain that she was causing her son by moving on to the next world. I love you, Naruto, with all the things I've done in the world, fighting in battles, creating jutsu, even meeting your father. None of them compared to having give birth to you. I couldn't have asked for a better son. Grow stronger, raise a family and make me proud, said Kushina. The redhead woman closed her eyes slowly. Her body starting to return to its translucent state and she started fading away. No, Mom, don't leave. You're wrong, I'm not ready to stand on my own. Please, you have to listen, I still need you, yelled Naruto, who waved his hands around the fading body, trying to find one last solid piece of his mother to grab. The action was in vain as the Sanday Mizuki faded into the next life to join her late husband, leaving only the history of her actions and a son behind in the world of the living. Naruto howled as he punched the tree that once supported his mother, yelling for her to come back. Amy just sat there staring blankly at the patch of grass that her sensei and mother-in-law had just laid on. Neither moved, too stunned to do anything other than mourn someone that had become very precious to them. It seemed that the statues that controlled the weather decided that rain was appropriate for the day's events. It had been a couple of days since the final passing of the Sanday Mizuki, and a group had formed in the clearing in front of the redhead statue. The group consisted mainly of storm dragons. After they heard of the summoner's passing, dragons of all shapes and sizes had decided to come and pay their respects to the fallen kunoichi. Amy looked on as Tsukoshi buried a small box which housed the crystal that had been the only remains of the redhead. After the deed was done, the tiny dragon turned to the group and took a deep breath. We are all here to pay our respects to a woman who always stood by her principles of protecting and nurturing those who she loved. She was one of the most strong-willed people that I and many of you had the pleasure of calling a friend and comrade on the battlefield. We must all remember that even though she will never walk among us in the physical plane again, she still walks among us in spirit and memory, Tsukoshi said as he bowed his head in a prayer. We will now tell Kushina that we will never forget her and tell her of our sadness of never again having the honor to serve her, yelled the largest dragon of the group. All the storm dragons faced the heavens and let out a deafening roar. The intensity of the chorus created by the dragons shook the earth and heavens, as the dragons paid their final respects to the red-headed women they had served for years. Amy stared at the tombstone of her former sensei and late mother-in-law. The tombstone was simple yet beautiful. It was a thick stone slab about a foot thick, 10 feet tall and 6 feet wide that stood in the shadow of Kushina's cage statue. On the upper half of the stone a large full-color picture of Kushina was embedded into the rock and covered with glaze of clear crystal that would forever shield the picture from the elements. Under the portrait words were carved, "Here lays a woman that protected and cherished those who trusted and loved her. She was honorable wife, a proud mother, and a beautiful and powerful kunoichi. Those who pass this stone remember this. She was strength, honor, and love incarnate. She was the Sandaime Azukage, she was Kushina Uzumaki. Amy slowly read to herself. The rain hid any tears that the purple-haired girl shed as the dragons all finished their roaring salute to their former master. Afterward, one by one each dragon poofed out of existence, heading back to their realm. Tsukoshi crawled up to Amy and gave her a small nod. "Take care of yourself, Amy, and remember, if you or Naruto need any advice, just summon me and I'll be glad to help," said the small dragon. "I will, Tsukoshi. Sorry, I just don't feel like teasing you today with everything that has happened," sniffled Amy. "It's alright, I look forward to when I can hear the words water lizard nonchalantly coming out of your mouth," said Tsukoshi. "What do you mean by water lizard, Tsukoshi?" came a booming voice. The two turned around to find the source of the voice, to find the large dragon that had instigated the roaring salute coming towards them at a calm pace. "Nothing, sir, it's just a teasing game I play with the girl. She means no disrespect by it," said a nervous Tsukoshi. "I see. So I assume that you are Kushina's daughter-in-law that just signed our contract a couple of days ago," said the large dragon. "Yes, sir. I am Amy Uzumaki and it is a pleasure to meet you," replied Amy, bowing respectfully to the dragon. "It is nice to meet you, young one. I'm Oinaru, boss of the storm dragons. I am sorry that we had to meet under such sad conditions," said the dragon. "It is fine, I'm just glad that I get to meet you guys. I hope I can be a good partner to you guys in the future," said Amy. "I hope so too. Now where is Kushina's son? I would also like to meet with him," said Oinaru. Amy's face looked away and she sighed. "Naruto's taking Kushina's death pretty hard. He refuses to come out of his room, he barely eats and he just stares out of the window. I getting pretty worried about him," said Amy, worry laced in her voice. "Give the boy time and your support, young one. Those are the best cures for him," said Oinaru. "I will," replied Amy. "Good, come Tsukoshi, it is time for us to go. Once again a pleasure to meet you, Lady Amy, and I look forward to working with you," said Oinaru. "The feeling is mutual, Master Oinaru," replied Amy. With a nod, the two dragons disappeared in a poof of smoke back to their home. Amy took one more look at the tombstone and slowly walked back to the Uzumaki compound as the rain continued to pelt her. She entered the main hall and slowly made her way to the kitchen, still dripping wet from the rain. She started preparing a small stack of pancakes and a bowl of ramen. She prepared the meal in a subdued fashion, still drained from the experiences of the hectic week. Everything had changed so quickly for her. Not even a week ago she wasn't married, Naruto still was the prison of Kyuubi, and she was talking with Kushina with not a care in a world. She soon finished preparing the meal and placed it along with a glass of milk on a serving dish. She proceeded to the second story of the living quarters wing and made her way through the double doors of Naruto's room. She looked upon the blonde who sat shirtless on the edge of the bed. He stared out at the twilight hour sky through the window. Amy made her way over to the nightstand, finding a cold half-eaten bowl of ramen on another serving plate. She had left that dish hours ago when she went to Kushina's funeral, and it saddened her that even ramen couldn't give any relief to her blonde-haired love. She switched the two plates and looked at Naruto. "I made you ramen and pancakes. Please eat all of them. If not for you, for me," said Amy softly. Naruto didn't respond as he continued to look out the window. The lack of movement or any emotion from the blonde was like a dagger to Amy. She knew he had every right to be sad and that didn't bother her, but her inability to help him frustrated her. "I'll wash the dishes and take a shower, then I'll check up on you before I go to bed, okay?" said Amy. Amy still got no response as she took the plate of cold ramen down to the kitchen and washed the dirty dish clean. After the chore had been done, she made her way to her own room that she had been living in and grabbed some clothes and towel. She then stepped into the hallway and made it to the nearest bathroom to take a shower. The warm water ran over her body as the noise of the running water calmed the nerves of the purple-haired teen. After a long spell in the warmth of the shower, her nerves and body felt refreshed and clean. She cut off the water and dried her body with a towel. With her skin dry, she put on a pair of panties and placed on a teal nightie that reached down to her upper thighs. She then headed back to Naruto's room to check on him before she would go back to her quarters to call it a night. She entered Naruto's room to see that he hadn't moved from the spot on his bed. But as she looked at the nightstand and the clean dishes, she knew he had eaten, and that brought a small bit of joy to her. "Thank you for eating the meal. I know that you're probably not in the mood for food," said Amy. Naruto continued to stare out into the now night-covered landscape of the village, seemingly unaffected by the words of Amy. Amy, now determined to hear the blonde's voice, crawled upon the bed and embraced Naruto from behind. "Naruto, please say something. I know you're hurt, but I want to hear your voice." Amy cooed softly. Naruto continued to stare, not responding. "Please say something, anything," pleaded Amy. Naruto continued to be unresponsive, and finally Amy couldn't take it anymore. She would get Naruto out of this rut, and the best way to deal pain was cover it with pleasure. "That's it," yelled Amy. She then grabbed Naruto's shoulders and pulled him back onto the bed. Naruto fell back until he was stopped by the springs of the mattress. Amy then straddled herself on top of Naruto and slammed her lips into Naruto's sloppily. Naruto's eyes widened, caught off guard by the actions of his purple-haired companion, but he still stayed unresponsive. Ami's lips continued to caress Naruto's, which brought warmth to the blonde's face. Naruto, unable to resist Ami's advances any further, wrapped his arms around the small of Ami's back and started to return the kiss, allowing his hormones to kick in. The little kissing sessions soon intensified as Naruto took his tongue and prodded Ami's lips, asking for entry. Amy obliged and slowly opened her mouth, allowing Naruto to feel out the interior of her mouth. Not to be left out, Amy took her tongue and engaged Naruto's as a dance of intimacy. The tongues wrapped around each other, allowing the two teens to taste one another, both groaning and moaning at the pleasure they were giving each other. The two continued till the need of air became apparent, and slowly they broke the kiss. Amy then straightened up and reached down to the bottom of her nightie and proceeded to pull the nightie up above her head, exposing her breast to Naruto. Naruto sat captivated by the round, perky mounds that Amy possessed. Naruto slowly, without thought, reached up and caressed the mounds of flesh, causing Amy to take a sharp inhale of pleasure as Naruto groped them. While Naruto kept attention fully on Ami's chest, Amy slowly pulled the panties that hid her womanhood off. Naruto was so enamored by her breast he had yet to notice that Amy was now fully nude. Amy slipped backwards and pulled Naruto up till the positions reversed, with Naruto on top and her on bottom. It was then that Naruto noticed the nude state of the girl, suddenly causing his heart to beat a mile a minute. Amy, seeing the surprised look on Naruto, pulled herself up slightly until her mouth was next to his ear. "Please Naruto, do it," said Amy in a seductive tone. Naruto, as if under a spell, slowly reached down and started to remove his pants and boxers, which over the course of the last few minutes had grown very tight. After some tugs, Naruto's manhood was released from its cotton prison, bobbing up and down as if it enjoyed its new freedom. Amy looked down to see the organ, which was pulsating, asking for use. She blushed slightly now, seeing that Naruto was very well endowed in the area. She patiently waited as Naruto positioned the tip to the folds of her womanhood, the slight contact already sending mild shocks of pleasure through the couple's bodies. Naruto proceeded to enter deeper into his lover's folds each centimeter, giving more and more pleasure to him. He then felt resistance, meaning he had reached her hymen. Naruto pushed forward with a little more force, trying his hardest not to hurt his purple-haired lover. Soon the dam known as the hymen broke, causing Naruto to plow deep into Amy. Amy gasped quickly and wrapped her arms tightly around Naruto's neck as a small bit of pain shot through her. As Amy trembled slightly, Naruto stopped and waited for Ami's body to get used to him being inside of it. After a minute or so, Amy relaxed as pain dulled and pleasure once again took the forefront of her sensations. She laid back down and gave a nod that told Naruto to continue. Naruto pushed forward till he was complete inside Amy. He then cocked back to perform the first thrust. He shot forward, causing both to gasp in pleasure. Naruto, now desiring to feel the pleasure of thrusting himself into Amy, gained speed on each thrust. Amy, feeling the speed increase, moved in her own sequence, causing both to pull out and push in at the same time, bringing forth more pleasure from the intimate act. Amy was on cloud 9 as their hips collided with Naruto's, only to be pulled back to collide again. Amy believed that this couldn't feel any better until suddenly a slight building of pressure made itself evident in her lower abdomen. With each thrust the pressure kept building and building till it felt as if she was going to burst open. Finally, one particularly deep thrust by Naruto sent her over the edge. Screaming loudly, Amy grabbed Naruto and pulled him in a tight embrace. Her body convulsed wildly and her sight went white as she dug her fingers into Naruto's back. Her inner wall contracted, squeezing Naruto's manhood tight, causing him to grunt in surprise and pleasure as Ami's juices leaked out of her onto the bed sheets. Amy slowly came down from the high of the climax she just had. Nothing in her life had nearly been that intense. She looked upon her lover and decided that it was his turn for the intense pleasure she had just felt. Pushing Naruto onto his back and once again straddling him, Amy started to grind her hips in circular pattern with Naruto still inside her. The maneuver worked as Naruto grunted deeply, showing his elation with the act. Amy increased the speed of the grind that stirred pressure in Naruto's loins. Naruto started breathing heavier, signaling Amy that Naruto was soon approaching his own climax. Quickly switching tactics, Amy lifted her body and pushed down, thrusting Naruto deeper into her. The now familiar pressure she felt earlier resurfaced, casing her to increase the speed of her movements even further. The change in speed was all Naruto could take. He quickly grabbed Ami's hips and shot his own hips upwards, shooting himself deep into Amy as he released his seed into her. The warmth of Naruto's seed and the power of Naruto thrust was all Amy needed to be pushed over the edge. Both went into simultaneous convulsions of pleasure, feeling the ecstasy that was their simultaneous climax. Amy fell forward, landing on Naruto's chest, enjoying falling and rising of his deep breathing. She cocked her head up and looked at him. For the first time since Kushina's death, his eyes were bright and full of life. "Good, maybe now you can get off your butt and do something," panted Amy. She removed herself from Naruto's manhood, causing a small torrent of both hers and Naruto's juices to exit her womanhood. She blushed lightly, already missing the full feeling that having him inside her gave. "Good night, Naruto," said Amy softly and started to walk away towards her own room. "Amy, wait," called out Naruto. Amy turned around and looked at Naruto, glad to hear his voice once again. "Amy, you're a mess. Come on, let's head to my shower and get cleaned up," said Naruto, who got up and grabbed Ami's hat, pulling her to the connecting master bath. Amy allowed Naruto to pull her into the shower with him as he turned on the running water. The hot water relaxed the taut muscles they had received from their previous activities. Naruto walked behind Amy and grabbed a washcloth. He wrapped his arm around Amy, then gently and with much care started to clean Ami's womanhood, making sure that every bit of residue left from both him and her was washed away. As he did this, he put his chin on Ami's shoulder. "Amy, thank you. I was a little lost and that really helped," whispered Naruto. "It was just as much fun me as it was for you. Remember, Naruto, I'm your wife and I stand by you and make you happy, and if that means fuck your brains out, then I fuck your brains out," said Amy. Naruto chuckled at the blunt comment, but he had become used to it. With all the time he had spent with her, he had learned that Amy liked to start off caring and sensitive when it came to dealing with him. But if situation calls for it, she could be brash and blunt. It seemed that the brash and blunt approach was needed for him to get brought out of his slump, and he was thankful that his wife had answered the call. He kissed her neck and turned off the water, the job of getting cleaned up done. They both grabbed a towel and started drying off as they exited the master bath back into the bathroom. Amy then started making her way to the door. "Amy, where are you going?" questioned Naruto. "I'm heading to bed. What does it look like I'm doing?" responded Amy. Naruto only shook his head as he looked at his wife. "Amy, I'm your husband and I need to start acting like it." "So what husband has with his wife and makes her sleep in a different room?" "I tell you who, a bad one. So please turn around and share a bed with me, okay?" said Naruto. Amy smiled and walked back over to Naruto. She wrapped her arms around his chest and kissed him deeply. After breaking the happy lip lock, she stared happily into Naruto's cerulean eyes. "You really are too good of a husband for me," said Amy. "And you're too good of a wife for me," Naruto responded. The two chuckled and proceeded to bed, changing the sheets to clean fresh set. Getting under the covers, Amy scooted her back into Naruto's chest as Naruto encased her in a protective embrace. "Amy, I'm sorry that you had to go to Mom's funeral by yourself," said Naruto softly. "It's okay, tomorrow we'll pick some flowers for you to put on her grave and you can say your goodbye in your own way," replied Amy. "I would like that. Then after we should get packed and ready. I think it's about time we go and see if we can recruit some of the clans that left the whirlpool before its destruction. Are you up for that?" said Naruto. "I'm more than ready," yawned Amy. The two embraced teens snuggled closer as they drifted off to sleep. Outside the Uzumaki compound, the rain's assault on the village finally waned to a clear night. On the eye on Kushina's statue, however, a small bit water gathered on the eyelid and dripped out of the eye's corner. As if Kushina herself was crying tears of joy for the consummation of the young couple's love.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.